takeaway. Where do you want to start?
Let's go to Steve in the car. Thank you for calling, Steve.
Hello, Steve.
Hi, Jim. Hi, Marjorie. How are you guys?
We're excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I mean, on this topic, I'm glad that Brittany Griner gets to come home. No American deserves to be held in those conditions. The only thing that gives me pause is the Russians getting this asset back. This guy's a notorious arms dealer, and they're involved in a war in Ukraine.
Yeah.
So it just, it's a worthwhile deal to get our citizen home, but it does make me uneasy.
Steve, thank you for the call. Speaking of getting our citizen home, you pointed out to me an editorial I missed this morning in the Boston Globe. Do you want to share the essence of that with people?
Well, it's talking about the fact that we have many, many people who are held in foreign jails overseas, and they talk about how she was a celebrity. She's a very well-known person, a big basketball star, two-time Olympian gold medal winner, and they just talked about what do we do about all these other people? There's not a fairness here, I guess, is what.
Well, it's not a fairness. They're forgotten. I mean, not by their families and people who love them and people who care about them, but the reality is we have the attention span of a gnat, most of us, when it comes to things like this. And there are a lot of people, if they're not famous, and that's one of the reasons. Do you think if Brittany Griner was just another person, like a Whelan, for example, who was held hostage there for 9 or 10 months in Russia, we'd be hearing about it every day? The answer is probably no, don't you think?
Well, the Globe talks about the James W. Foley Legacy Foundation. We remember he was the New Hampshire journalist, James Foley.
And worked with Charlie Sennett.
Worked with Charlie Sennett at the Ground Truth Project, who was killed by the Islamic State terrorists back in a few, I'm not sure the year, it was in Syria, but in any case. But they have released this foundation that talks about that there are, the State Department doesn't provide this running list, but the Foley Foundation September report put the number of 65 Americans who were wrongfully detained in countries like Iran and China and Venezuela and Syria and Russia. And so that is their point, that this is an ongoing problem. You also say to yourself, after this situation, does this make it more likely that Americans should stay out of Russia, because you may not be famous like Brittany Griner, but do you go to Russia and get snatched up in some kind of bartering deal?
Well, you may.
You may. Yeah.
By the way, speaking of that, Stephen Gloucester, I'll try to be as respectful as possible to your text. I feel 9 years was excessive, but let's not forget she did break Russian law. Is that why you think, Steve, she was sentenced to 9 years in a penal colony, because of possessing hashish or whatever she had? I don't think so.
Well, the other thing is she's gay, and Russia. I mean, you can't be gay out. You can't be out and gay. I mean, Putin just issued another edict this week, cutting back rights for gays and lesbians in Russia. So it's a very hostile environment over there to her as well.
Do you think Booth's mother, when she says, "Do you know who my son is?" She says, "He's the merchant of death." Do you think she's pressing, boy, am I proud of my boy. Brenda in Fall River, by the way, I'm sure everybody's heard this already, he not only is just brutal on every front, is also selling weapons to some of our adversaries with the intent that they use it on people in the United States, or at least United States citizens. Brenda in Fall River, you're next on Boston Public Radio, a hometown of Marjorie Egan. Hello there, Brenda.
Hi, guys. How are you doing today?
We're fine, thank you.
You guys just brought up 2 points that I was going to make. One, that she is openly gay, and 2, she did take cannabis or whatever it was into a country that is highly against all of that.
Yeah.
And I don't agree with the exchange that they made, because that man is very dangerous. I'm glad that he's home and, doing okay. But as far as, taking drugs into another country, it's stupid.
Brenda, I'm not quarreling with you. Do you think she was detained because she had drugs? Or do you think there might have been some other factors, in fact, exclusively other factors, and the drugs were just the pretense, the excuse?
Oh, I think it was other factors, too.
Right. So if she had no hashish on her possession, they'd figure out some other reason to detain her, because she's a celebrity, and Putin's being humiliated by our allies, including Zelensky and his people. So I hear you. To put any blame with all due respect, on Brittany Griner, I think is misplaced. But Brenda, thank you for your thoughts. We appreciate it. 877-301-8970.
You know, the Globe always points also in their editorial about the number of Americans wrongfully jailed overseas. They point to a history teacher from Pittsburgh, this Mark Fogel, who the State Department also deemed was wrongfully detained, arrested in August 2021, serving a 14-year sentence after being arrested at the Moscow airport with medical marijuana.
So why isn't he mentioned when everybody's talking about this?
Well, I think that there's a great, I mean, it's not a perfect system. It's an unfair system. But I think when you listen to the sister of Paul Whelan with such graciousness say... His brother was the same way.
Yeah,
and there is a difference because even though all the Americans are saying these are trumped up charges against Whelan, they're saying he was a spy. That's different than being somebody with a couple of vape cartridges in your pocket at the airport.
But they say everybody is a spy.
Well, they do.
If they need to have a hostage.
But that's their justification, that it's an espionage situation, and so they're going to be tougher on him than they might have been on her.
Speaking of Whelan himself, not his siblings, here he is talking to CNN producer Jennifer Hansler. This played last night.
If a message could go to President Biden that, this is a precarious situation that needs to be resolved quickly. And I would hope that he and his administration would do everything they could to get me home, regardless of the price they might have to pay at this point.
Yeah, how sad that was. It was not only sad because the guy's in captivity and may be in captivity for another, dozen years if there's not some release plan dealt with. The fact that the hostage himself has to make the case for himself was really... this is not criticism directed at him at all. It just is a horrible state of affairs.
To me, this whole thing is kind of about how divided we've come as a country. You know, you have to have Kevin McCarthy up there trashing the president about it. You have to have a lot of nastiness online about how terrible it is that the Marine gets left behind and she gets out of there. It's just, we have to weigh in, as you said. Everybody's suddenly an armchair diplomat. I don't know what happened in those diplomatic meetings. You don't know. None of us know. So it's just, we seem to have to weigh in on everything and find a way to be nasty about almost everything. That's what's kind of too bad about this.
And by the way, we reject that, which is why we're weighing in on it right here on Boston Public Radio. There is a problem there somewhere, but I think we're trying to be sort of, are we above the fray or apart from the fray? What are we exactly?
This has been the big news of the last 24 hours that everyone has been talking about. The debate about Brittany Griner comes home, an ex-Marine stays over there stuck in a Russian jail.
When do you think Oprah interviews her? I'd say by tomorrow, would you say? Or, I mean, she is going to get... Let's go to Lee in Rhode Island. We're talking about Brittany Griner and all the implications that flow from it. Welcome there, Lee. Hi.
Hey, hi. How are you? Long-time listener.
We love that.
Back with... Lenny the Linguini and all of that type of stuff.
Lenny the Linguini.
Yes, we do.
He was one of the stars of our show.
Those were the days, Lee, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
Go ahead, what's up?
That, my concern is, people are getting their talking points and the negativity that surrounds this whole topic from the way that it's being reported in the media. These are two different cases. It's very, very nuanced. You have a young woman who, although she's a celebrity and played in the WNBA, she has a small amount of cannabis oil and she gets snatched up, and she's going to be put in the penal colony. And it's being portrayed by some people that, she's a celebrity basketball player who got caught with drugs. The individual we keep calling the ex-Marine, and I'm sympathetic to his situation, what's not being reported is he was court-martialed.
No, it hasn't.
He was dishonorably discharged from the... Yeah, but...
Does that mean we shouldn't be trying to get this guy out?
No, absolutely not. I'm totally sympathetic. I'm saying that the way that it's being discussed and the way that you just talked about Paul McCarthy and some of these other people who are trying to turn this into a divisive issue. What I'm saying is that, this former Marine, he was arrested while Donald Trump was president of the United States. Yeah. Right? My question is, would we have even heard about him if Griner was not arrested in Russia?
Well, I think the vast majority of us would not. I think you're absolutely right about that.
Yeah, we should mention that, Lee, and thank you for reminding us of some of the details about Paul Whelan. He, in 2008, as a staff sergeant in the Marines. He was discharged from the Marines for bad conduct. The Pentagon released his record, said the charges related to larceny. CNN has reported that he was accused of using someone else's social security number and writing bad checks. His family has said that they did not know about these situations. He's a citizen of multiple countries, United States, Canada, UK, and the Irish Republic, and he's worked in security, most recently global security for US-based automotive component supplier, and was overseeing security at facilities in Russia and around the world, and has visited, in Michigan, securities in Michigan and around the world, and visited Russia many times.
877-301-8970. One more call before a quick break.
Hold on. The other
What?
thing we forgot to mention is that a lot of the animus toward Brittany Griner is also because she wasn't doing the Colin Kaepernick thing. She didn't want the WNBA to be playing the national anthem after the George Floyd murder, and so she's supposedly a I Hate America person. I mean, that's
Well,
what
the primary
a lot of,
animus is that's who Biden got.
Yeah.
And I would assume, despite what you just said, if they gotten Whelan out and not Brittany Griner, Kevin McCarthy would be complaining they didn't get Brittany Griner. I mean, your point is so well taken. Even on something as sensitive and important as this is, there's got to be a nasty, low-rent criticism back and forth, which is really, it's rather pathetic. Will in Ashburnham, sorry we interrupted ourselves or something. Hello there.
Hey, good morning, guys.
To you, too.
So, 2 points. This merchant of death, didn't he serve 12 years out of his 25-year sentence already?
I don't know how long it was. What's your point?
Well, the point is that the guy's already spent some time. And then number 2, how many people in this world are selling arms to forces against the United States? There's a lot of bad guys. I guess my point is that this merchant of death moniker is probably a little overblown, and I think people are getting hung up on that, and they're going to use it for political advantage. He's just a bad guy who sold arms, got caught, spent half a sentence. He's really not that high value, is he?
Well, I don't think you can say just, by the way. He had a 25-year sentence, and he did serve a little bit over a decade. You were right. My colleague Jamie just tells me. But, I think he's a horribly bad actor, and he's somebody I don't think you want loose in the world. Having said that, if that was the price to get Brittany Griner home, I think most people I know would say it's the price you got to pay. So, Will, thank you for your thoughts. We appreciate it. 877-301-8970.
We're talking about the return of Brittany Griner, the WNBA basketball star from Russia, and the fact that American prisoner Paul Whelan, a former Marine, is still there. What do you think about this? What do you think about the controversy about it? What do you think about the darts back and forth from one side of the political spectrum to the other about this? You're listening to Boston Public Radio. The number's 877-301-8970. We're broadcasting from the Boston Public Library, and we're streaming on youtube.com/GBH News.
They're known as informal settlements. Sometimes they're referred to as slums. People who live in them are often in harm's way.
You can see people concerned with climate change looking at these informal settlements and thinking, okay, we've got to move these people. It's too dangerous for them.
Climate change, housing, and why relocation is not the only answer. It's on the world.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you. And EverSource. EverSource knows the role energy plays at the center of life for you and your family. And because of that understanding, in times like these, they offer plans that can help this winter. To see if you qualify, visit eversource.com. And musicians of the Old Post Road with their festive holiday program, American Originals, A Moravian Christmas, on December 10th at Boston's Emmanuel Church and December 11th at Worcester's Trinity Church. More at oldpostroad.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan live from the Boston Public Library, streaming on youtube.com/GBH News. And as I said, next Tuesday at the library, Mayor Wu. The following Tuesday, the first Ask the Governor-elect with Maura Healey joining us here at the Boston Public Library. You know, when were we here? What day is today? Friday? Tuesday we were here, and we committed a cardinal sin, which was we depressed the whole audience for 3 straight hours. I am making a commitment on behalf of Marjorie and me. After we do this topic, will we stop depressing people
It's going
today?
to be fun and games from here on out,
I wouldn't
Jim.
go that far, but this is going to be it because I can't take it either. Rachel and Roslindale.
By the way, I should say Whelan served less than 25 years. Whelan served less than half of his 25 years.
Yeah, about a decade.
Yeah.
Rachel, you're in Roslindale. Welcome to the show. Hi, Rachel. What's up?
Hi, I'm a longtime listener, first-time caller.
I love that. Thank you.
I just wanted to say that, you know, for those of us who are queer and have queer families, her being locked away in a homophobic state was terrifying. And when you add in sort of like the shooting that happened in Colorado and all the sort of like attacks on us, it really, like, a lot of my community just felt like we have to bring her home. We have to. And the last point I will make is just to, like, let's remember why she was abroad, which is that WNBA players do not make nearly as much money as all the male sports teams.
I am so glad you made both those points, Ray.
Yeah.
They were both great, and we should have mentioned both. And we've talked about this low NBA pay thing, by the way, which is the reason. Doesn't she make more money in Russia? Am I wrong about this?
I don't know, but I heard Charles Barkley, the former
That was great, Rachel. Thank you.
Great NBA star and now a sports commentator, saying, you know, absolutely just what Rachel just said, that a lot of women go overseas to play. Maura Healey went overseas to play basketball. Remember that?
Yeah.
People go overseas to play basketball because they can't make and she's a 2-time Olympian, I mean, superstar.
Champion.
Yeah, what is she, like 6'8" or 6'9" or some, you know, enormous height? That's why she went. She went to.
Have you seen her play? By the way, I am embarrassed to say I had not seen her play until this happened.
I have yesterday.
And then I went on YouTube. I mean, she is really.
Yeah, she's unbelievable. She's a superstar,
amazing.
And we couldn't pay her well enough in the United States of America. Even though you have these basketball stars that are making millions and millions and millions of dollars in the NBA. Let's go to Ellen in Westport. Thank you for calling.
Hey, Ellen, welcome.
Hello, how are you today? I'm going to be sounding a little bit smarter this morning. But my personal opinion...
Wait, a little bit smarter than what? A little bit smarter than what?
That's what I usually am. I sometimes sound like a big clown.
No, you don't,
And
Ellen.
I tell things
Never.
like it. Oh, thank you so much. And I tell it like it is.
Okay.
In my personal opinion, I think both parties, the military man and the lady in question, the basketball player, both of them should have been brought home. The military person could have helped us out with what's happening over there in Russia with Putin and his craziness. And the military and the basketball player, you know, we gave her rights, we protected her, we got her home, and that says a very interesting thing to people who have issues with whoever they choose to be, you know, to be their partners in life. Okay, so it's a political thing with me, and also a practical sense. That military person that's been waiting over there for years, he needs to come home and be with his family this Christmas.
Ellen,
okay?
I don't think anybody disagrees with you.
My attitude should have been. My attitude is bring them both home. We're sending billions to Ukraine.
Ellen,
so
can I
those
interrupt
people
and
can
ask
fight.
Ellen? I got to ask you a question. Do you think that if President Biden and the Secretary of State thought that by holding out, if they thought they could get both of them, they would not have done that? I mean, don't you conclude?
No, they would have probably they would have done that,
Exactly.
and they probably would have thought of the exchange. But that's why I think both of them should have came home.
No, I
because,
understand that, but
like
Ellen, all I am saying is I operated under the assumption that their goal was to get both of these people home. I think that's a fair assumption. And if they decided to just take Griner, I'm assuming it's because they thought if they didn't cut a deal for just Griner, they were going to get neither Griner
Well, that's
nor
exactly
Whelan.
it.
Ellen, you were
thank
terrific.
Thank you for the call, but that's exactly it. It was one or none. It wasn't like we can hang around for both.
Well, you know, but I think what Ellen is saying, and I'm sure other people feel the same way, is maybe Joe Biden and Anthony Blinken should have played harder ball. I don't know. I wasn't there. I don't understand anything about these incredibly sensitive things. Plus, we're negotiating with a country that we're essentially at war with, not directly, but, you know, secondhand. It's an impossible situation. So I think there's a consensus. Everybody would have liked to have seen both of them come home, but sadly, they did not. 877, Ellen, thanks, you were great. 877-301-8970 is the phone number. Steve in Charlestown, what's up?
Yeah, I was just calling on the release. There's another, nobody talked about him. There's a guy named Mark Vogel.
Yeah, the history teacher.
Marjorie mentioned him.
We just mentioned him, yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
But he was basically caught doing the same thing. He brought in less than a gram of marijuana. His sentence was 14 years in hard labor. So Griner's sentence really was not out of line with what I guess, straight white male sentence.
But what is your point? I would say that 9 years in a Russian penal colony is pretty bad, even if it's not. If your point is not as bad as 12, I guess mathematically that's true.
No,
but what are you saying exactly?
Both sentences are crazy, but I'm not sure. You know, it's been said that the reason her sentence was so big was she was a black female or gay or something. And this other guy, same offense, longer thing. Both sentences are nuts.
Yeah.
And probably done because they were both American. That's all I'm saying.
We got it. Steve, thank you for the call.
You know, everybody has to weigh in on these things big time all the time. We just pulled a story about Bo Bergdahl. Remember that? Sure. Obama got him back, and there was an exchange with some detainees down at Guantanamo Bay, and Bergdahl was trashed, and Obama was trashed. I mean, it's kind of what we do now.
Oh, really? I hadn't noticed that.
And I think that's kind of what this is
about. Have we heard from Trump yet on this thing, by the way?
I don't believe we have heard from Donald Trump.
Before we leave this, before I went to bed was it last night? Yes, or early this morning. I can't remember. Somebody I follow, I'm embarrassed to say, who's a big Trump fan, but he's often amusing, was saying if Donald Trump, this is unbelievable. I'm glad I remembered this before we finished. If Donald Trump had been president, we would have gotten Paul Whelan out. To which I thought, but he was president, and he didn't get Paul Whelan out. Did they forget that part?
I don't know, but we all know better than the diplomats, you know.
Apparently
we all know
do.
better. We all know better how to run these things than the people who devoted their lives to figuring out how to do diplomacy and
Let's
run
all
these
hope
things.
Whelan is home and Vogel are home soon.
Anyway, enough of that. We're moving on to fun and games, Jim. Isn't that what we're doing here
Well,
at the Boston
I wouldn't go
Public
that far,
Library?
but a lot more funner and gamer than this.
We're going to be joined by Boston business columnist Shirley Young on the local math whiz from Newton, who got caught up in this massive crypto scandal we've all been talking about for days. Carolyn Ellison of Newton, you're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH. We're broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library, and we are streaming on youtube.com/GBH News.
This week on Under the Radar with Callie Crossley, finally, the Green Line extension is open for service. Plus, Boston City Council says yes to allowing 16 and 17-year-olds to vote in local elections. Will the state legislature give the final okay? And residents in Dorchester star in an exhibit by a local photographer. That and more on our local news roundtable. That's Under the Radar with me, Callie Crossley, Sunday night at 6 here on 89.7 GBH and the GBH app.
Support for our programs comes from you and the Holiday Pops, helping you prepare for the most wonderful time of the year by unwrapping the magic of the Holiday Pops, now through December 24th. Tickets and more information at holidaypops.org. And Boston Ballet, presenting the Nutcracker. Dare to dream big with New England's favorite holiday tradition. You can gather with family and friends to see it live at the Citizens Bank Opera House, now through December 31st. Tickets at bostonballet.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy, Marjorie Egan, live at the Boston Public Library, streaming on youtube.com/GBH News. I made a mistake. I said Donald Trump hadn't said anything. Of course he had said something. He posted this on Truth Social. What kind of a deal is it to swap Brittany Griner, a basketball player, this will really surprise you, who openly hates our country, for them? I can't even I shouldn't have read it. In any case, we're joined now. You read it yourself. Go to Truth Social. I'm sure you're all on that platform. Joining us now is Shirley Young, business columnist for the Boston Globe, regular BPR contributor. She is here to discuss the millionaire's tax for the 400th week in a row. Hey there, Shirley. Nice to see you.
Hi.
You really have to talk to somebody. You need a little bit of help with this.
Okay.
Shirley, let me tell you.
I didn't write the story.
I know
Come on.
you didn't. That's true.
Her colleagues, Matt Stout
one.
and Dana Gerber, barely days after the election, here we got the Secretary of State, Bill Galvin, is floating tweaks, as the headline says, the millionaire's tax to exempt some homeowners. I think we have to call Bill Galvin out there in Brighton and ask him about his house and what's going on there. Maybe he's one of those
one of those elderly
senior
homeowners.
citizens is worried about getting taxed if he sells his house in Brighton. I'm just joking. I have no idea. But anyway, what does he want to do?
Well, he wants to look at legislation to try to exempt, homeowners maybe who've been there 5 or 10 years, who are elderly, exempt from the new surtax.
Hold on for a second. If you've only been in Brighton or anywhere in Massachusetts for 5 or 10 years, you probably are not going to. I mean, you had to put down $1 million to begin with to buy a house, practically. So how much more are you going to make in 5 or 10 years?
This legislation is still work in progress. But the reason why I'm very interested is because my colleague Larry and I had written a story not that long ago looking at whether, every time there's a ballot question passed, the legislature can go back and do some tinkering.
Right.
And and because this is a change to the Constitution, a lot of us thought, they can't really do much. But in fact, they can do exactly what Bill Galvin is proposing. That he can look at some exemptions, some abatements. He also looked at creating a fund or separate fund, putting education money in a separate fund, because this tax is supposed to go to support education and transportation.
Let me just say, one, that is a fabulous idea. I mean, a really fabulous idea that hopefully everybody could agree with. So money isn't commingled, so the legislature isn't in a position to say, we did spend the extra money, and the advocates say, no, you didn't. You essentially commingled it, and that makes total sense. It is really, really important, and it is really important, and I say this to Secretary Galvin, for whom I have respect to. The campaign against this was a scare campaign that little old ladies like this were going to sell their houses, and it was their whole savings, and they're going to get screwed. Most people who sell their house, as the objective facts out of former Globe guy Evan Horowitz at Tufts made clear, are not going to be subject to this tax. They're not going to sell a house for $9 million, and if their house happens to be worth more than $1 million, with the exemptions that exist, improvements they made, virtually none of them are going to be covered. So while every reasonable modification to protect people who are vulnerable should be considered, people listening to the show should not fear, particularly the people that Galvin is talking about, that, oh my God, the one thing I have any investment in is going to be taken away from me, and all my profits. It's just not going to happen.
And in fact, Horowitz says that this would probably affect dozens of people, maybe hundreds of people.
In the whole state?
In the whole state, very few people. So it'll be interesting what happens clearly Galvin was floating out a trial balloon.
Can I also say one more thing that is totally self-serving, which I apologize for in advance?
Okay, Jim.
Marty and I were talking, you actually agreed with me, so it's not quite as self-serving as I thought. We're talking this morning, these journalists are really good. Every time the discussion is the legislature going to honor the mandate and spend the money on education and infrastructure, are they going to divert it? What they never mention in the story is what the woman who's going to be governor in a few weeks said right here on the show.
That's right.
In one word, will you veto any attempt to screw with the money? And her answer was yes. Yes, period. I mean,
Shirley, you know what the lesson there is?
Oh, my God.
People should be following closely. They should be Googling Jim Browdy, because he's asking the questions everybody wants the answer to. And he asked that question, and she answered it. End of story.
Right. I believe it wasn't really about me. Thank you.
You were ahead of the game, Jim, on that one.
Fine.
Right ahead of the game.
Can we move from the grad tax to Newton North High School?
Okay, Newton North High School. This is a great story. I mean, listen to this kid, this Carolyn Ellison, who was involved in this company.
Excuse me 1 second. On YouTube, Tailwind Farm just posted the following. I think it's important. Is Marjorie multitasking? She's fixing her coffee. She's doing paperwork. Is she going to wrap presents on air next?
Yeah. Well, I'm a little disorganized here. What I was doing, I was putting honey in my. I have a little cold.
Sorry.
Putting honey.
But thank you for watching. Actually, Tailwind. We appreciate
thank you for watching. I am a little bit all over the place.
Sorry about that.
Anyway, this kid, she played the cello. She was the captain of the. This is the woman that's involved in the Sam Bankman-Fried crypto disaster. She was in the other company. Apparently,
Alameda,
they were
whatever it is.
occasionally
Yeah.
involved with each other romantically. She played She was on the captain of the math team at Newton North, which is one heavy-duty high school. She played the cello. She's on the Nordic skiing team. Apparently, one of her parents. Her father runs the economics department at MIT. Her mother's over at MIT too. So we're talking big brains here.
And she went to Stanford.
She went to
Your
Stanford,
alma
my
mater.
alma mater. That's right. I would not get into Stanford today. Let me tell you that right now. Anyway, she gets read Harry Potter when she's 3. 5, she doesn't need anybody to read it to her because she's reading Harry Potter herself at 5. I mean, talk
You know
about
what's
a
really
genius.
great, though, but really nice, heartwarming, because they're trying to be upbeat?
Yep.
She's going to be able to read the whole series in jail soon. So, I mean, by herself, don't you?
We don't know that. We don't
I'd
know
say,
that.
maybe we don't
But anyway,
know that.
they were all dishing about it right at the 10th reunion from Newton North High School.
Yes, this is a great piece by my colleague Anissa Gardisi,
great.
who covers tech. And Anissa's fairly young, so she could go in and kind of blend in to I think the 10th reunion. I don't think I could, or I would stick out like a sore thumb.
Absolutely not.
I guess they would say, "Are you one of the moms?" That's what they would say.
Yeah.
But anyways, Anissa did a great job. She was working on this story for a while, just piecing together, who is Carolyn Ellison? How did she get herself involved in FTX? And what was really interesting, I think a lot of people were surprised to hear that Carolyn got herself involved in a company like FTX, and now it's subject to a lot of investigation, potential fraud. Investors have lost billions of dollars, and so what Anissa did was she went in and looked at, listened to some of the podcasts and some, writings, I think, as well. And it was really interesting because you got the sense that she didn't know what Carolyn was in over her head. She's like, what do CEOs do anyways,
Yeah.
I think. She was asking. And I mean, she started as a trader when she graduated from, and then when she switched over to FTX, she's like, and Alameda, she's like, wow, this is a very different kind of trading. And so, it will be interesting to see what happens. It reminds me a little bit of what's going on with Theranos, what happened.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
when
yeah.
There were 2 people at the top, romantically linked, and
both going to jail for a long...
Both going to jail, but they also turned on each other,
I know they
right?
did.
And so I wonder, and Sam Bankman-Fried was he's actually talking.
Big time.
He was at, spoke end of last month, New York Times has a deal summit, and he was like beamed in live from, the Bahamas, where he is, and he's basically, saying, I didn't know what I was doing. It's an innocent mistake. This wasn't fraud. And so I think he's trying to distance himself from any.
But can I tell you something? He is proving that he's a fraud by what he said in that interview. He said he is working to get the money back. He has nothing to do with the company anymore. Yeah. So he can't, even if it was possible to get the money back. And his lawyers are saying, apparently, he said, my lawyers are saying I'm talking too much. I know this may be naive, and I'm sure every defense lawyer is going to disagree with this. If Carolyn Ellison did nothing wrong, she should maybe talk to a Globe reporter and explain how this happened, rather than making a reporter do the kind of legwork she had to do. She's got nothing to hide. It was all innocent mistakes. Then she should grant at least the limited interview, but apparently that's not going to happen.
Now, we can't move beyond this story without mentioning the lead of this story that Anissa Gardisi reported on. Here's the lead. At an exclusive party in the Bahamas last spring, FTX founder Sam Bankman-Fried was perched atop a patio railing, mingling with pop star Katy Perry and actor Orlando Bloom. Because at the time, FTX is one of the hottest cryptocurrency exchanges of the moment, and a lot of people were advertising for it, including Tom Brady.
Well, am I not right that there's some litigation in which people like Steph Curry and Brady and Giselle Bundchen are defendants? I think
there is a lawsuit going on.
Yeah, I guess the allegation is that if you're going to be advertising, you have some obligation to vet the product to a certain degree, but how would Tom Brady and Giselle or anybody know how to vet this product?
Well,
the
I
whole
think they
world?
probably have people that can do it, and if they can't do it, then maybe you shouldn't promote to people who idolize you that you should buy the product.
But wasn't Wall Street kind of transfixed by
That's a
this
good
too?
point.
FTX was seen as the good guys.
Yeah.
At crypto, the darling, the one outfit you could trust, and that's why a lot of people don't trust crypto at all now.
You know, Shirley, when I used to advertise for mattresses, Gardner Mattress,
You did?
great mattress, I would actually go to Gardner Mattress and roll around on
She
the
did?
mattresses. And when Jim was advertising,
They were
for
handmade, by the way.
handmade virility pills.
I did not do virility
all of
pills.
A,
I really,
all of a sudden, he came in one day and his voice was about 4 octaves lower. I said, Jim, what happened?
okay. By the way, those were handmade mattresses. Those are really
That's
high
right.
quality.
There
Let
were
me see if I can
handmade
change the
virility
subject.
pills as well.
No, they were not.
So
Okay.
no one will sue either of you, right? No one will sue either of you because
No.
you've tested the product.
We tested the products.
One of
we
us did. Yes, that is correct. Now,
okay, Jim advertised them without
okay, fine.
testing. That's
Now-
his claim, Shirley.
So Shirley, if I can ask you a question, I ridicule you for your obsession with the millionaire's tax, which is important. But let me praise you, as we have done before, your relentless coverage of Maston Cass, which obviously is far from resolved, is really important and is a huge public service. So there's a NIMBY, not in my backyard story, which there always is when it comes to homeless people. Could you tell people what the latest is, Shirley Leon?
Yeah, there are 2 proposals in Boston right now. One in Dorchester to convert the Comfort Inn into permanent supportive housing. This is 100 units, basically studios. They would, I think Community Builders is the nonprofit developer.
Yeah.
They want to partner with Pine Street Inn, and they want to convert this Comfort Inn into permanent supportive housing, and they would have staff, case managers on site and security to help people living in this hotel, and this would be people who have been chronically homeless. There's another proposal in Charlestown, Constitution Inn. It's been closed. It's owned by the YMCA. And another proposal, another nonprofit developer, the Planning Office, which is an arm of the nonprofit housing development arm of the Archdiocese. They're partnering with St. Francis House, another homeless services provider, and they want to convert this this hotel again into permanent accommodation of permanent
Add kitchenettes and things like that.
add kitchenettes, another permanent supportive housing, and also some affordable housing units as well for those who are making about $55,000 to $75,000. Both proposals have been making the rounds in the community since the summer, and both proposals are facing incredible opposition from the neighborhood, even though it's very clear we need to get on top of our homelessness problem here in in Boston.
You know, Lydia Downey, head of the Pine Street Inn, who is going to go to heaven if she believes in it, when she's ready. She is just otherworldly great. She was with us a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about, is it JP were one of the...
Jamaica Plain, yes, they are in Jamaica Plain.
And they took a huge amount of crap, but she talked to us about how they worked essentially in the community and did a lot of outreach. There's still some concerns. She's totally understanding of the concerns. And by the way, I'm sympathetic to those who are anxious about it too, but the reality is every person who's an expert says this supportive housing thing is the key. Permanent supportive housing is the key. And leaders, and you didn't say in your story, I assume because it didn't happen, is Mayor Wu part of this sale job that needs to be done to community residents, or no? I mean, ultimately, that's the only solution to this thing.
Right. No, she has been, I believe, on the record saying she supports permanent supportive housing. I don't think she's weighed in on the individual products. I mean, they're early stages, these projects. And, I mean, the community has, I think for the community fears that the people moving in will be the people from Mass and Cass, who are very, who represent the most urgent cases of homelessness and the opioid crisis. Frankly, the people living on Mass and Cass are too sick and too kind of far gone to go immediately into permanent supportive housing. It's actually quite difficult. You have to go through a
Very
thorough
much
vetting
vetted,
process.
right?
Yeah, you have
Yeah.
to go through a criminal background check. You have to be stable enough to live on your own. And many of the people who live on Massacas need to go first into kind of transitional housing, spend some time there, get cleaned up, and then they can move into permanent supportive housing. So these are people who are chronically homeless. Maybe they have a disability. Some of them have a job, and they've been through the system. They're stable, but they need a subsidized place to live, and they need some support, ongoing support.
You know what's is so incredible that you read stories. I mean, obviously there are people with drug problems and mental health problems that are homeless, but there's also people who got evicted, and rents are so high in Boston, they can't afford, the first month, the last month of security deposit. They are just unable to pay the rent.
Right. And so it's interesting because I talked to Andy Waxman, who is one of the regional vice presidents who's working on the Comfort Inn project. And, I almost ask everybody this question, the developers and the providers, working on these projects. Like, what would you say to a community that's, upset about, the prospect of permanent supportive housing in their neighborhood? And first of all, in Dorchester, there is permanent supportive housing already. Pine Street actually already operates 80-some units in Dorchester, and it seems like without any problems so far. And so Andy Waxman tells me, I hear that a lot. Like, why are you building this here? Why didn't you build it in your own neighborhood? And he actually lives in Jamaica Plain.
I know, that was a good
He
answer.
lives 2 blocks from 1 Pine Street in permanent supportive housing project, and about 4 blocks from the new one that Community Builders and Pine Street are building in Jamaica Plain. He's like, I do have these in my neighborhood. I am living next door to them. And so the point is everybody, these proposals should get, every development community always has issues. They should work it out with the developer. I think the one in Charlestown, they're concerned that the only grocery store is Whole Foods. There's not enough urgent medical care there. Maybe there should be a grocery store. Maybe there should be an urgent clinic there as part of the proposal.
We're talking to Shirley Young, but you've done great stuff. I know you'll stay on. Can we talk about another good news story? We've talked to Jill Shaw about this from the Shaw Family Foundation. I had the city manager of Chelsea on when this thing started. There's this guaranteed income program. I know they don't call it that, but essentially a guaranteed income program called Chelsea Eats, I believe, obviously in Chelsea. The original round had, 2,000 participants.
Residents, yeah.
And the basic notion, we all heard it from a guy who ran for president not too long ago, is you give people a check. Well, explain what the program is and explain what the initial round of results suggest about its effectiveness.
So this program, I think, launched in the fall of 2020.
Yeah.
And what happened was that Tom, I think Ambrosino, the city manager of Chelsea, everybody was doing these food pantries, right? People were out of jobs and they needed food, and he just thought there's got to be a better way to help people, rather than having them line up. I think I remember him telling me, it was like, it was they're heading into winter, and it's like this prospect of long lines of people waiting in the cold for food. He said, why don't we just give them debit cards? Why don't we just give them money? No strings attached. And so that's what they started to do. They gave debit cards, I think as much as $400. You had a month, a certain income level. And I think they did it for maybe, I think the initial round was 4 months, 6 months. I think it ended up 9 months of $400, and they attached smartly. They attached a Harvard researcher to the pilot program to see what would happen if you gave poor people money, with no strings attached. Would they spend it on? Some people have. The reason why, a lot of municipalities and government have kind of not gone this route is they're like, will they spend it on drugs? Will they spend it on alcohol? Will poor people be irresponsible?
Yeah.
But what they found is, no, they spend it on food. They spend it on basic necessities. You know, they didn't squander the money. They and the whole idea is like, let's trust people. with money.
Well, it's not
you
just
know?
they spent on food. I think part of the initial conclusions, correct me if I'm wrong, Shirley, is they were more stable in their housing.
Yes.
Their health was better. So there are trickle-out implications
Yes.
of this beyond the fact that they did what most people would do is feed their family
Right.
with extra money. And obviously food insecurity went down. I mean, all good things.
Yeah. And they ate healthier. They ate healthier. I
That's
think it was
right. That's
healthier-
exactly right.
Healthier food
And
too.
because it's more expensive in a lot
Right.
of
Yeah,
cases.
exactly.
And the problem is not money for this. And I hope that the success there, they're doing one in Cambridge too, I believe.
Yeah, Cambridge. And so actually, I mean, Massachusetts, there's a lot of these guaranteed income programs have sprung up. There's one in the South End because what's like the Chelsea Eats, it was a combination of city money, but also Jill Shaw philanthropy, private philanthropy. I think Camp Harbor View is also doing it with their families. I mean, I think we're one of the regions that we probably have the most, the kind of the biggest experiment of guaranteed income program going on.
I think the
right now.
juries are coming in, and the question is going to be, where's the money going to come from
Right.
if people want to embrace these? Before you go, we got to talk about a cat cafe.
That's right. We're very excited about
So,
this.
could you explain what a cat cafe is?
Charles Street.
Is that where it's coming?
Yeah.
Charles Street?
Yeah, you go to this cafe. I think it's a coffee shop,
Coffee
right?
shop, yeah.
And then you can go hang out with some cats, but you have to pay a lot of money to hang out
Was
with
it
the
like a
cats.
cover?
Well, no. I think there's like there's a regular part of the coffee shop, right?
Yeah.
You go drink your coffee, and then there's a part where I think you have to pay like $30 an hour or something, or I don't know, some amount of money to
spend quality time with the cats.
Spend quality time.
And what do
with
they do?
the
They have
cats.
10 cats in there just
They're
running
behind
around?
a wall. No, they're behind a wall. I
Right,
think,
right. That's the
You're not getting to
cat
pet 'em.
lounge. That's the cat lounge.
Cat
That's
lounge.
where you have to pay an extra,
Well,
extra fee.
Well, this is my younger
Cat
daughter.
lounge.
My younger kid, who was 28, was in South Korea a year ago. And I told Marty this. You know where she went? To a raccoon coffee shop.
What?
And the raccoons,
What?
on my honor, she says they're all over Asia. I knew nothing about it before.
Yeah, the animal cafes all
Okay, well, I didn't know
top of
this.
Asia.
So not
The
only
raccoons.
are there raccoons, the raccoons, according to her, is what she tells me, she showed me photographs actually, are not behind some wall or whatever. They walk around, and you know what they do? They take crap out of your pockets.
What?
So they cozy up to you. They're apparently totally safe. And they either put their paw or their snout, I can't remember which she said,
Oh, my God.
into your pocket. And if you have money or whatever they have there, they take them out. But raccoon cafes running wild. And these animal, I guess it is animal cafes. And what other kind of animals are they doing?
Well, I know here. I mean, there's a dog cafe. I think it's in Everett. There's
a raccoon and a dog are a little different. You know what I mean?
No, well, I've only heard cats and dogs. I've never
Raccoon.
heard of raccoon.
I checked with her this morning to make sure it was right. Yeah.
Did she go?
She went. She had a time of her life.
No.
Honest to God, she loved every minute of it. Yeah, she did. No cover fee. I think
No
she just bought
cover.
coffee or tea or
I
whatever
guess
the
it's
hell
such
it
a
was.
novelty. That's how you distinguish yourself from Starbucks and Dunkin'.
I think
right?
when after Mayor Wu closes down Newbury Street permanently, which she obviously has to do, she should be opening raccoon cafes.
Well, it's supposed to open on 80 Charles Street in the spring, and you're right. You can either just look at the cats, or you can reserve to go behind the curtain, the window, whatever it is, and
Right.
hang
You
out
guys
with
need
the cats.
to broadcast
Live
live
from
for
there,
the
a
Per
remote.
Cat Cafe. Exactly.
From the litter
For
box,
cafe,
actually. It'd be
cafe
perfect.
cafe.
Okay.
Nice to see you, Shirley.
Good to see you.
We've been speaking with Shirley Leung. She's a business columnist for the Boston Globe. Thank you very much, Shirley Leung. After the noon news, Callie Crossley is here to talk about Trevor Noah's farewell to The Daily Show and where to get the best hot chocolate around Boston. 'Tis the season for hot chocolate. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library, and we are streaming on youtube.com/GBH News.
You're listening to Boston Public Radio with Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. Just ahead, more smart conversation about what's going on in our community. That's right after an NPR news break here on GBH News 89.7.
Support for GBH comes from you and Ocean State Job Lot, fighting hunger by donating food to regional food banks and local food pantries. Learn more at oceanstatejoblot.com. Join GBH News reporter Adam Riley for dynamic discussions with local political newsmakers, analysts, and activists about today's most important issues on Talking Politics. Tonight at 7 on GBH2.
Trusted. Local. News. You're listening to 89.7 WGBH, HD1 Boston, online at gbhnews.org. GBH News with NPR. What matters to you.
Ahead on Boston Public Radio, live from the Boston Public Library, 5 women, including 2 Cosby Show actors, have filed a new lawsuit against Bill Cosby, accusing the comedian of sexual assault, battery, and emotional distress. GBH's Callie Crossley joins us to discuss this and the great Trevor Noah's Daily Show goodbye last night. Then it's media maven Sue O'Connell sharing her thoughts on Griner, a cheating scandal involving 2 Good Morning America anchors, and Senator Kirsten Sinema's decision to screw her Democratic colleagues and leave the party.
Legendary French chef Jacques Pepin zooms into the library to talk about his latest opus, a collection of paintings and recipes featuring the humble chicken. Then it's Live Music Friday. Musician Chad Stokes and partner Sybil Gallagher join us ahead of their benefit show for Calling All Crows. We'll close by asking you, are Christmas tree prices putting a dent in your holiday spending, or are you saving money by going artificial? All that ahead, Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Lakshmi Singh. Senator Kirsten Sinema of Arizona is leaving the Democratic Party and registering as an independent. NPR's Barbara Sprent reports Sinema's departure leaves Democrats with a tighter margin than expected in the U.S. Senate.
Sinema said she would not caucus with Republicans, but would continue to vote the way she has for the past 4 years. In a video, Sinema said the party switch will better reflect her constituents.
Registering as an independent and showing up to work with the title of independent is a reflection of who I've always been. And it's a reflection of who Arizona is.
Sinema, along with Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia, is a self-described moderate. The pair often frustrated fellow Democrats when they tried to get big-ticket items through the Senate. Sinema did not say whether she would run for re-election in 2024. Barbara Sprent, NPR News, Washington.
The Russian government says the prisoner exchange it arranged with the U.S. for basketball star Brittany Griner's freedom is not a sign of a thaw in poor bilateral relations. But Russian President Vladimir Putin has said the Kremlin is open to more prisoner swaps. Since Griner's release, the Biden administration has emphasized they're not giving up on getting American Paul Whelan out of a Russian prison. Whelan has been detained there for years now on espionage charges the U.S. says are unwarranted. U.S. National Security Council spokesman John Kirby says Russia refused to negotiate his release with Griner's. Meanwhile, family and friends are celebrating Griner's return home after she spent the last 9+ months detained in Russia. We have more from Texas Public Radio's Ja Chen.
Griner landed at Kelly Field in San Antonio in the early morning hours. The 32-year-old Houston native was imprisoned in a Russian penal colony earlier this year after authorities there found vape cartridges and cannabis oil in her luggage, sentencing her to 9 years. The Biden administration negotiated her release in exchange for Russian arms dealer Victor Bout. Griner is expected to be brought to Brooke Army Medical Center. I'm Ja Chen in San Antonio.
Britain, Italy, and Japan say they're working on a next-generation fighter jet. The BBC's Jonathan Beale says the 3 countries hope to unveil the advanced military aircraft by 2035.
Work on developing a new fighter jet is already underway, with the aim to create a combat aircraft that'll provide speed, stealth, and advanced sensors and weapons, and which could also be flown without a pilot on board. But building such a complex aircraft is extremely expensive, and Britain's been looking for partners. Italy was already on board, but the addition of Japan is a significant move. Other countries could still join the programme.
That's the BBC's Jonathan Beale reporting. You're listening to NPR News.
Good afternoon from the GBH Radio Newsroom in Boston. I'm Craig Lamolt. The MBTA says an equity analysis of its proposed new bus network indicates service changes will benefit those who need it most. GBH Radio's Bob C. has more from last night's public meeting.
The T wants to ensure that its redesigned bus network won't adversely affect low-income riders and people of color. To test that, Justin Antos of the T's bus transformation team said that cell phone data was used to get the most accurate picture yet of where people actually travel.
So this redesign is based on the best information we've ever had on how low-income residents and people of color travel.
Antos said the data was supplemented with surveys for senior citizens who are found less likely to own a smartphone. The equity analysis is a federal requirement that must be met before any bus routes can be changed. Bob C., GBH News, 89.7.
School officials from across the state gathered at TD Garden Thursday to discuss hate in sports. The event comes after several well-publicized incidents, including Duxbury High's football team using anti-Semitic speech and bullying and the use of racial slurs by members of the boys' hockey team in Danvers. Attorney General Maura Healey, whose office was among the event's hosts, said she wanted to do something to address the issue.
I wanted to bring people together like we're doing today and like we're doing with this initiative, because we need to be really clear. We need to make sure that our young people are given the opportunity, whether it's to play sports or do anything else that they love, in an environment that's safe and supportive. And that's what today is about.
Healey says she'll continue to combat hate, racism, and homophobia as governor, and she expects Attorney General-elect Andrea Campbell will do the same. Sunny today, a high in the mid-40s.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Clarivate, creators of the Ideas to Innovation podcast, an exploration into solutions designed to address the world's most complex problems, at clarivate.com/podcasts.
I'm Craig Lamalt, GBH News, 89.7.
It's Jim Browdy. I am Marjorie Egan. Welcome to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting as we do every Tuesday and every Friday from the Boston Public Library, and we are streaming on youtube.com/GBH News.
Hello again, Jim, you're supposed to say.
Hi, Jim.
Hello again, Marjorie. How are
Sorry.
you? And by the way,
how could I forget?
Next Tuesday, I am Jim. Next Tuesday, Mayor Wu joins us for Ask the Mayor, and a week from that Tuesday, which is 2 Tuesdays, the governor-elect will join us for the first time, Maura Healey, as the governor-elect, to take your questions and calls. That's noon on the 20th. First,
Oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
No,
I'll
introduce
go
Callie.
ahead. No, you go ahead.
Introduce Callie.
We're joined
She's
now
here.
by GBH's Callie Crossley. I went ahead. She's the host of Under the Radar with Callie Crossley. You can catch her at Sunday nights right here on 89.7 at 6. She's also the host of Basic Black, which airs Fridays at 7:30. You can also hear her Callie commentaries on Mondays for GBH's Morning Edition. Hello, Callie Crossley.
Hello, Jim.
Hello there. How are you?
Hello, Callie Crossley.
Hello, Jim and Marjorie.
So I'm going to start with a little sound here. This was kind of a sad night for lots of people who are big fans of Trevor Noah. He hosted his final Daily Show last night. 7-year run, the face of Comedy Central's late night show. At the end of the segment, he spoke to the crowd, offered his appreciation, and specifically thanked Black women for their guidance and impact in his life.
Unlike everybody else, Black women cannot afford to f around and find out. I'll tell you now, do yourself a favor. You truly want to know what to do or how to do it, or maybe the best way or the most equitable way? Talk to Black women. They're a lot of the reason that I'm here, and so.
He wrote a very heroic book about his life in South Africa.
It's a fabulous book.
Fabulous
I highly
book.
recommend
Yeah,
it.
it's very inspiring.
Yeah.
And he went through hell.
He did go
as
through
a
hell.
child. What was it? Son of a crime or
Born
boy?
a crime.
Born a crime because
Yes,
of interracial marriage
yes.
being out. So what do you think of his what he had to say, and what do you think of his impact over the last 7 years?
Well, he's just so clever. I mean, his whole line about Rafiki's waiting over there to hold him up for the new kid that's coming.
Yeah.
That was pretty funny from The Lion King. I just remember all the strum and drang when he came in, and how he's really made himself a part of the landscape. And I think for lots of people who didn't even know him during the pandemic when he was doing those very serious, they weren't funny at all. I mean, he really talked about some serious issues, but they were so well written and so well spoken. I'll miss that too.
Well, to me, he just had everything.
Yeah.
Obviously, very smart. Yeah. Obviously, went through hell growing up in apartheid in South Africa. But also, he just had that just seventh sense or whatever it is of these of people that are comedians that just can really pull it off. Like,
He's also wildly charming.
Well,
right?
he's also charming and he's really adorable. But
Right.
I mean, you know how Johnny Carson had that feel. We're old enough to remember Johnny Carson had that feel for the room. He's got that feel for the room. He did the best, for my money, the White House Correspondents' Dinner thing
I agree, it's
ever.
great.
I mean, how many comedians would totally flub that up?
Right.
He just went in and did it seamlessly.
Had you heard of him when he took over with the show?
I had not.
Nor had I.
And then when we did the reading of his book for my book club, one of the things that has continued to stay in my mind from it, I mean, it's just so many great things about it. I encourage you to read it if you haven't. He speaks so many different languages and dialects of South Africa. And he talks often about, because he could hear the different languages and how, therefore, the perspectives of so many different groups, he just came to have a global perspective, even without leaving the continent.
Yeah, that's a great point.
By the way, we played that Serious Bite. If people haven't seen his farewell deal, you got to see it. I'll just read you one line that was unbelievable. What he says last night, when I started the show, I had 3 clear goals. I was like, I'm going to make sure Hillary gets elected. I'm going to make sure I prevent a global pandemic from starting. And I'm going to become best friends with Kanye West. So I think it's time to move on. I mean, he is almost perfect. I'm with Marjorie. He's got like and you say to yourself, when you have a platform like that and you are so good at it, the something that it takes to say, I'm going to give this up. And no one really knows what he's planning on doing. I'm sure he's been wildly successful. But it really, he was just...
Well, one of the things, he felt kind of homebound. He enjoyed the show, but he likes to travel and do stand-up, so there was that. I think we also need to go back. I always say this, that COVID impact is longer and deeper than we think. He lost his grandmother. His grandmother was a sole source of comfort and raised him. And I think that during that time, he hasn't really had a chance to grieve her in the way that I think he would have if he hadn't been going through that. So
and
I think that's part of it,
about black women, too. When you look at votes year after year, who doesn't get fooled?
Yeah. That's true.
I mean, you look at the vote from black women, and it seems like he said, cutting right to the chase.
And also, let me just say one other thing, which I can't believe we left out. If you want to see him in person, and I have tickets, by the way, he's coming here in spring, and the only thing you have to do is probably sell your house. And if you sell your house, you can probably take your partner with you, too.
Oh, no. Are they that expensive?
Oh, my God. They are not cheap.
Oh, yeah. How much they cost?
They cost a lot.
They do?
And that's on the primary market. I'm not talking about the secondary market. Can I say one more thing about him, which I've said before? And this may seem so small, and people say, why you've been wasting it? Well, I'm saying it anyway. We go when New Hampshire was the first primary state, which it still is for at least another couple of weeks. We would go up and spend a week there, all the years we've been working together for radio and television, and it's great. And we went to he'd just been hired. We went to an event in New Hampshire at the main hotel where Trevor Noah had a reception. And there were about 500 people. I would say Marjorie and I were the oldest people by no more than 70 or 80 years.
Right.
And there had to be 400 or 500 people there. Trevor Noah went around the room, and there was idolatry. Every person there was like in awe. He went around the room and shook the hand of every single human being and thanked them for coming. And it's such a generous, beautiful, small act. It took him a lot of time, by the way.
Yeah.
And I'm sure every single person, including me, by the way, every single person remembers that act of generosity.
Well, Jim, you bring that up, but it's important because what did he say at the end of his goodbye was he was so grateful.
Yeah. And I think he means it. It's a real deal.
Right.
So he'll be, I was going to say a loss. Obviously, he's going to do great things, and we'll see him a lot.
Yeah.
But The Daily Show is done for now.
So what's going on with Bill Cosby?
Well, this is interesting. I get confused by when the laws run out, and
me too.
But anyway, 5 women have now started another lawsuit against him, claiming the sexual harassment. Now, 2 of them, I don't know about the second woman, Eden Turrell, but Lily Bernard was very prominent in the documentary. What are we going to do about Cosby?
Yeah.
And her story, if you choose to believe it, alone is pretty startling. So these other 4 women, she was one of the actresses on the Cosby Show. There's Eden Turrell. I don't know what part she played on the show, but she was one of the Cosby actors. And then there's 3 other women. So they're not only coming after Cosby in this, but they're coming after the studios, saying at this point that when it happened to them, the studios were well aware of his reputation and should have in some way intervened. Or
you know who one of the defendants is in this case? Co-owner of the Boston Red Sox, Tom Werner. Warner
right.
Production,
Yeah,
his
that's
company,
right.
was
That's
the
right.
lead producer of The Cosby Show.
That is correct.
And by the way, my understanding of this, I'm going to play lawyer for a second, and
Yeah.
I'm sure I'm going to regret it, is retroactively you can't change the statute of limitations on a criminal matter.
Okay.
You can't say, I'm going to extend your time to bring a criminal prosecution against. And the only way they're able to bring some of these things against people like Cosby is the statute of limitation tolls if the person's out of the jurisdiction. It happened with a couple of priests, by the way, in the
Okay.
Catholic Church.
Okay.
My understanding is, and please text me if you're good lawyers out there, or is a good lawyer here, I'm about to embarrass myself. Civilly, I think you can. And what I think they did in this jurisdiction is they created this window where the statutes of limitations may have expired, but they reopened them, I guess. And that's the window through which these 5 women
And
are
he
filing this
also
lawsuit.
got out on a technicality, right?
Right,
This whole
yes.
non-persecution agreement he apparently
Prosecution.
made. Well, yeah. Oh, prosecution. That was
Yeah.
a typo in the story.
Oh,
Then they said
okay.
non-persecution.
Yeah,
That's how it was
yeah.
written in the story. But agreement with the comedian made with the Montgomery County District Attorney and the Pennsylvania Supreme Court overturned
I
his
just also
convictions
want to
because
point
of
out that if people have paid it at all any attention, and I also highly recommend, this was Camus Bell's documentary, What Are We Going to Do About
I love,
Cosby?
I love him too.
The stories that were told by the women, different circumstances, didn't know each other, were remarkably
Yeah.
similar. So now you can say, what does that prove? Well, I just think it says a lot.
Remember the
That-
cover of New York Magazine with the
Yeah.
photographs? How
Yeah.
impressive
He
was
had
that?
he had a modus operandi. He
Yeah.
had a thing that worked, drugging people and then assaulting them. I mean, it worked for
It
him
was really,
over and over,
it
right?
was really amazing.
Yeah.
And one of the women that was interviewed in the documentary who got on the set because he saw her and decided he liked her. She asked one of the producers, "Now, let me just get this straight. I have virtually no experience, and I should not have this kind of role. What's going on here?" And no one had said anything to her, as she didn't
Yeah.
know what was happening, and how she ended up in that position. And she was just fortunate that she was one of the ones that managed to escape. But, this is. Let's just say that even though that he still has his protectors and his defenders, these women have decided that no matter what, they're not going to go down unless
Yeah.
people know the truth in the story.
Well, he doesn't have
as
that.
they know it.
When you say defender,
Yeah.
he doesn't have that many defenders, does he? I mean,
I'm always amazed. There is a guy that has been with him forever who's on part of his legal team. I think somebody should do a profile of him. I mean, he's not just, I get paid loyal. I mean, he's really loyal. And I'm just curious.
you ever heard of Rudy Giuliani, by the way? Have you heard of him?
Yeah, well, I guess.
Well, I mean, there's
Okay,
another
all right,
one.
All right, you're right.
You know what to me was one of the great things about the Cosby case? It's like, unlike Weinstein, who's kind of a creepy guy. You
Kind
look
of.
at him and you say, oh my God. Here we were, this is someone that I think everybody loved, right? Crossover star, had a lot of fans and followers, America's Dad, all that kind of stuff. That this person who's had this whole persona could have this other life that you would never in a million years have
Never.
suspected.
Unless
And
you
that,
just-
to
How
me,
excited were we when he called into our show?
very excited.
I mean,
You
we
sang
were
your
wild.
alma mater
we
from
sang,
high school.
We both went to the same high school. We did
I
sing
interviewed
our,
the guy several times.
and
Did you?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yes, yes, yes,
So
yes.
would you ever have believed that this guy?
Well, you know what? What's interesting about it is I didn't know all this history, but he had a little bit of an edge to him that I
Really?
wasn't prepared for.
Really?
And now looking back, having heard all the rest of the stuff, it makes sense to me.
we didn't get that through the
yeah, no,
headphones,
I
but it's
got-
a
I
lot
got
different
it.
when you're sitting in front of a human being.
It's very different.
Well, do you
And,
remember the video when the first reporter who had the courage, I think it was an AP reporter, to ask him a question about this, and Cosby is on tape saying there was a deal
Right.
that
I will
none of
not-
this stuff would come up.
Exactly.
And you could see the anger building in the body of this otherwise warm and genial man. And
Well,
it was.
I think that was a little bit of what he was coming back, because at the time I interviewed him, Michael Eric Dyson had written a book saying, how does he get to say, what poor black people should be about or whatever. And so I said, there is some criticism out there. Just, I don't have to talk about that.
Is that what he really said to you?
Oh,
Really?
He said, I'm not talking about that. And I said, well, it's incumbent on me to bring it up so you can respond. And then in the follow-up question, I can't remember the term that I used, but there was a word that I used. And he said, you don't know what that means. Of course I defined it. And the audience was like,
Wow.
so I said, come on now. Come on, don't front me. Come on. But it was edgy.
Yeah.
So, but I didn't, at that time, that wouldn't be enough to make me think. I just thought he bad day or mad about being criticized.
But the bottom line is, even if these suits prevail, he's going to say, a la Trump, it's BS.
Yeah.
He'll pay money that he has, and because he got off on that, because of that non-prosecution agreement with the prior DA, he's going to live as a free man for the rest of his life after what he did to these dozens of women.
I'm just going to say that the women who have continued to come forward at great, and particularly Lily Bernard, because I remember her story in the documentary.
Yeah, so do I.
Her husband said, wow, this is going to be a lot for you. And she continues to come forward. That says something to me.
It
That's
does
brave.
indeed.
Okay, let's play some music here. Here's a little sound from Lizzo's About Damn Time.
Damn Time.
Popular TikTok song of the year.
Turn up the music.
Look at those Callie moves right there, even in her seat.
In a minute, I'm going to need a sentimental kind of girl to pump me up. It's about damn time.
So she's like huge now.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Come on, wake up and smell the coffee. Yes, she is. She also has a Christmas album out now that's doing very well. But It's About Damn Time is great. It's a great song.
But I have to say, it may be a great song, and I know it's the #1 song, but the TikTok thing of the year, which I am probably the only person on the planet had not seen till a week ago.
Oh, the Jiggle Jaggle?
No, till my colleagues on the show, the little boy.
Oh, the corn?
Talking about
where
corn.
Have you been?
I don't know where I've been. The only thing I've ever seen is, we're going to play a little piece of this. If you haven't seen it, it's not. Do you remember the kid who was at the county fair or something? He says, apparently, he's like this tall. Apparently, I'm on live television. That was the funniest of that sort. Here's this little kid, and this can't do it justice, because until you see this little boy's face and the joy and the everything combined, here's a little piece from the famous TikTok corn kid, Tariq, giving this beautiful description of his favorite vegetable, which obviously is corn.
I really like corn.
What do you like about corn?
It's corn. A good corn that knobs. It has the juice. And a more beautiful thing. It's corn. I can tell you all about it. I mean, look at this thing. When I tried it with butter, everything changed.
With butter, everything changes. And he says it's corn-tastic. Maybe the cutest kid who is.
Yeah, how old is that kid?
8,
I don't know, but the
7,
corn industry should be hiring him. Because
it's not the corn industry, it's the corn.
Yeah, the corn. That is true.
Industry.
He's so cute.
I really like corn. It's such a beautiful little kid.
I like it too. I'm with him on that.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
We're talking to Callie Crossley. On the serious side of the ledger, yet another study that should surprise nobody, comparing a particular subset of people of color with the wages of white men. In this case, it's Latinas. Hispanic women, and the numbers are stunning considering how many years we've been sort of center staging this thing, no?
Yep, they're really bad. And what I thought was interesting about this latest report, there's a huge gap. So surprise, Kel surprise.
2 to 1.
But in the past, I didn't realize this. They hadn't often included people with part-time seasonal or migrant jobs, which are, a number of Latina women. And so then they put those numbers in, that made it even worse. So that's a big move to sort of look at that data. Yesterday was National Latina Pay Equity Day, when they look at if there's one for black women, there's one for women in general, to see what is the gap between what white men are making. Those are the people who are usually at the top of the chain, of the wage chain, compared to everybody else, and how long it would take you to catch up if you got the money that you were somewhat making. So this would be the 43 cents on the dollar not paid to Latinos working full-time year-round would add up to $2,477 a month, or $29,000 a year.
Wow.
The amount, this is the part I like in terms of making it clear, the amount would pay for 10 months of child care, 7 months of rent payments, and 11 months of food costs. And this comes from the National Women's Law Center.
But there's another aspect to this that I think is really important. Virtually everybody listening to the show has memorized those incredible statistics from the Federal Reserve Bank in 2015, I think. The average white family in Greater Boston, $250,000 of wealth. The average black family, $8. The average Dominican family, $0. And it's this wage gap that is sort of the predicate that begins that whole process.
right.
Because they can't save, because they can't accumulate wealth.
Right.
Unlike that Waite family, it's passed on from generation to generation. So the wage gap is not just painful for the individual who's on the wrong side of it, but for their kids, their grandkids, and that's why those numbers are as horrible. The wealth numbers are as horrible as they are.
And I also like to point out for people who say, well, woof, I'm glad I'm not in that category because it doesn't affect me. Actually, if everybody was up to snuff where they're supposed to be, it would raise up the entire economy.
Yeah.
So we all
Money to
benefit
spend.
in ways that, we can't calculate now because people are so far behind. So it's not harmful to anybody. People think they're losing something. Actually, you gain something by having an equal playing field.
Now, Callie Crossley, you apparently are well known. One of the texters says for your favorite alcoholic eggnog.
Yes. Pennsylvania Dutch. Do not be fooled by other brands.
Okay,
Let me start
Pennsylvania
that
Dutch.
right now.
Okay, we have the answer to the texter.
good for you, too.
Pennsylvania Dutch. But something else that's really good for you, though. Hot chocolate.
Oh, yes, this
in
is so
Boston.
great.
This is a
Yeah.
great little compilation from Boston.
Boss Today.
Yeah,
It's
Boss Today.
Yeah, newsletter.
Yes,
Boston newsletter.
about hot chocolate around
Which
the
I
city.
love.
They love the one from Stephanie's, which is just right down the street, right
I
on
love
Newbury
it.
Street.
I love it. I may have mentioned to you that L.A. Verdict, which is in Cambridge.
Yes.
All right. Well, that's the place last year I discovered you have single source cocoa. I mean, like Scotch. So you go in and the guy says, well, in Colombia, the flavor is, and I was like, okay. So I was.
So that
buying some
makes
for-
it better?
Well, it's very, very, it's artisan, to say
Artisan.
the least. And it's interesting. So it's different flavor profiles depending on, how it's grown. But typically, I didn't have a single source. It was all in there together.
Do you have
too. I
a
didn't
hot
know.
chocolate of choice? I have to say, I didn't know you're gonna. I would say Burdick's, even though it is
Yeah.
insanely expensive.
It is.
It's almost like there's hot chocolate and then there's this.
Yes.
Whatever this. You
Yeah.
never had
Really?
it?
No.
Oh, my God.
Isn't there
it's
one
so
right down
good.
the street here too, in addition to the one in
think
Harvard
there's-
Square?
Yeah, I just know the one in Cambridge, but I know they have another.
I think there's one down the block. Yeah.
Location, but I would do a little hot chocolate circuit with all of these places because of this place in Jamaica
Yeah, they got the
Plain
South
and
End Buttery.
Cafe Victoria.
Yeah.
JP Licks has one. I mean, this
Oh,
is
Jim,
really,
you're
this
right.
is delicious.
There's an LA Burdick's at 220 Clarendon Street.
Shocking.
Which is
that
French
I'm
hot
right.
2
chocolate.
blocks from here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thinking Cup. I mean,
Cannonball Cafe.
Yeah, I think this should be something that we take on as a taste test.
Yeah.
Are you a hot chocolate person or you're not?
Well, I'm a whipped cream person, and I put a lot of whipped cream on hot chocolate, so I'm there.
Well, I would suggest what Jim is saying is you have not had hot chocolate to the level of
Burdick's?
Yes,
I think
and I don't
that's
think
right.
you have to put anything on it. After.
Really?
It is rich.
you
It's
make
really
your
rich.
own. You make whipped cream, don't you?
Yeah.
I do.
How
Yeah.
great is that?
I just eat the whole bowl.
Yeah, I love that. Stick your head in it. I love that.
Yeah, no, it's really good. Okay, Callie Crossley, what are you doing on Under the Radar with Callie Crossley?
Well, we're talking to some of our local news roundtable people about finally the Green Line extension and all the hoopla, and then just bring some context to why. I mean, I never thought the thing would ever happen personally, and
Neither did I.
and some of the unfortunate downsides of its finally being here, but what it means. Also looking at openings and closings, they've closed off that JFK UMass, over by the Red Line. It's a
where we
real
used to work.
problem. Yeah, it's a real problem.
That's where
and-
Jim was arrested by the state police.
I was, but that's a long and painful story,
Oh,
which we
well.
will not share today.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
And anyway, we're opening up the, as
Oh,
everybody knows, the City
God.
Hall Plaza, so that's really important. We're going to talk about what impact on the cities that have. And I felt I had to talk about Frank Oglesby's voice being
I
taken
know.
off the
Oh, God.
Off the tee.
Come on.
He's got the most gorgeous voice. Remember we had him on?
Yeah.
We did.
But I
did.
think there's a larger issue about human voice versus,
Artificial
synchronized.
intelligence.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
Come on.
Yeah, it makes you feel like nothing that bad can happen when he's announcing the next stop. You know what I mean?
That's what the woman thought before she jumped into the Mystic, by the way. She said, nothing bad can happen on the Orange Line. Whoops.
Anyway,
Can
I
Go
just
ahead.
want to add that I have a great segment with my food and wine people because we're talking about fruitcake coming back, Boston wine bars finally making a claim here in town, and holiday gifts for people who are desperate you can, and don't know what to get your food lover and your wine lover, they have some ideas.
Can I say one thing about
Yeah.
the Green Line thing, which is spectacular
Yeah.
and long overdue, and credit to all the people who are involved, including the Capuanos, the Curtitonis, all these people. Bob C. was on with Paris and Jeremy this morning and raised a really important point that I spent a lot of time in Union Square.
Yeah.
It's like a half mile from my house, and that's where the first part of the extension was. The good news is the Green Line is finally extended there, and now it end up in Medford. The bad news is rent prices and home
Gentrification.
prices go through the roof.
That's part of our discussion.
Oh, it is.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
so it's. I mean,
Yeah.
you can't fix one problem, the transportation problem, without addressing the housing problem. Is the bottom line, and we'll listen and we'll find out what you had to
Well,
say.
it's interesting to me because I found out there's so many elements that impact gentrification that you wouldn't think about. Because I did a show a week or so ago for Basic Black with muralists, and they are concerned that when their murals go up, they're used as a tool to gentrify the neighborhood, which is not their intent.
Yeah, that's a
So
very
that's
good point.
pretty interesting.
It's a very good point.
Yeah.
Nice to see you, Callie.
Okay, Callie Crossy,
See you.
thank you very much.
Okay.
Callie Crossy is the host of Under the Radar, which you can catch Sunday nights right here at 89.7 at 6 o'clock. She's also the host of Basic Black, airs Friday night, that's tonight, 7:30. You can also hear her Callie commentaries on Mondays for GBH's Morning Edition. Callie, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Coming up, our media maven Sue O'Connell is here to take on the Good Morning America scandal and why a Republican congresswoman broke down in tears begging her colleagues to vote against a same-sex marriage bill. You're listening to Boston Public Radio.
With Roe v. Wade overturned, doctors in some states are unsure how to handle complications during pregnancies, and that's causing some people to rethink having kids.
I will not put myself through that again if I don't have the confidence that I will be able to come out the other side.
I'm Elsa Chang. That story this afternoon on All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you and Cure Alzheimer's Fund, which supports foundational scientific research into the causes of Alzheimer's disease, because research is the only path to a cure. Learn more at curealz.org. And Johnson & Wales University, using 5 decades of food and hospitality education to inform expanding academic areas like healthcare and business. You can explore more at jwu.edu.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. Coming up in a couple of minutes, Jacques Pepin, is zooming his way in. One of the most talented and sweetest guys we've ever had on the show. Chad Stokes and his bandmates are going to talk to us and play a little bit later, and they are spectacular. And then we're going to do our annual fake versus real Christmas tree debate.
It's a perennial
with
favorite.
Marjorie and me with
That's
our
right.
listeners. But first, I say, here to take on the social norms and abnormalities of the day is media maven Sue O'Connell. Sue is the co-publisher of Bay Windows, the South End News, contributor to Current on NBCLX and NECN. And one of the things we love about her is she brings her whole family every time she's here. Nice to see you, Sue O'Connell.
I think there's some people I owe money here today,
I bet
so
there
I might
are.
have to go out the back door.
Nice to see you.
So Sue O'Connell, let's talk about Kirsten Sinema here to start out. I mean, she's a senator from Arizona. She teamed up with Joe Manchin on thwarting some of the Democratic efforts and Joe Biden's efforts the last time around in the Senate. And now she's announced that she's going to leave the Democratic Party and become an independent.
Kirsten Sinema, our most prominent bisexual lawmaker, becoming bipartisan. So I guess
I like that. That's cute. Very cute.
High quality.
Yeah, listen, so I think that if I felt that she really believed this, like if she really was like Bernie Sanders, or she had a very well thought out agenda that matched the people of Arizona, who are purple. I mean, it's a purple state these days. I would be like, well, good for her. She's staking out her ground. But I think it is a completely transactional power greedy grab on her behalf. I know she's most likely going to have a challenger in the Democratic primary. She's up in 2 years. Her Senate seat is up in 2 years. I think she's just looking to stay in the news. Her committee seats, I think she's got to deal
with Schumer, with that Democratic leader. Yeah,
she's still going to be on the committees. They now have control, the Democrats of the committees. She's not saying she's going to caucus with the Democrats, but we can assume that she is. So, I mean, part of this is, if you don't know about Sinema, she started her career in politics as an extremely progressive lefty liberal, like an extreme progressive. So you have to ask yourself, how does she get here? And by here, meaning she has the opportunity to make changes now because the Democrats are in power, and she could push forward a progressive agenda with more success than she has in the past. But her whole career as senator, she has chosen to be more conservative. And I don't think this independence is I just think she doesn't want to be a Republican, but she still wants to be conservative.
Yeah, having said, let me just say one thing that a lot of people, Marjorie and I had this discussion this morning, Callie and I just had this discussion.
I know, because I was
Unless
confused.
I am wrong on the math. Everybody remembers, well, if Warnock doesn't win Georgia, that means there's a power sharing, equal numbers in every committee, so Warnock's got to win. So I think naturally people are making the assumption, well, he won. If she's not going to be a Democrat anymore, there's power sharing. No, there's not. Even without her as a Democrat, the Democrats have 50. They used to have 51 until she left. And the Republicans only have 49. So while I'm surely not defending her usual selfish BS, it will have no impact on, if you care about such things, on Democratic control of the Senate. And the Democrats will have more members of each committee. Why does that matter? Nominations like that of Rachel Rollins will be voted out by normal procedures. They can issue subpoenas to people who they want to haul in front of them. So that doesn't change, at least as far as I understand. Do you agree with that, by the way?
Absolutely, I agree.
Okay,
And just remember, she also, I think it was the Build Back Better bill, where she carved out that tax exemption, and everyone was wondering who it was for, how many of these people in Arizona, how many of her constituents were actually going to benefit from it, and they were like zero. So whatever the end game is that she has, I'm unaware of what it is, but it seems like complete transactional politics, and we're so thrilled that she's a member of the LGBT community, so that we can be, boasting about her savviness.
Okay, so Marjorie wanted to put this story first, but I told her we got to talk about Sinema. Marjorie was a little distressed. There was a wonderful piece in the Atlantic about Marjorie Taylor Greene.
It was.
It was about
her whole
5,000
life.
words, but the problem was Marjorie was searching, as you can imagine, for detailed description of her tantric sex with her gym instructor.
That's right.
Which sadly, because it was in the Atlantic, is absent. All it says is some crap about she had an affair with a couple of people at the gym.
Yeah.
But could you fill in some blanks for us again, please?
I don't know about you. Did you read it, Jim?
I did. Yes.
Okay, so I was shocked about how there's no information in it. Like, she seems to, not only is there no mention of the tantric sex, she seems to have just dropped out of space.
That is exactly what the point of the story is.
That the folks who went to high school with her don't really remember her. The kids that went to college with teachers don't remember her.
She was in the hot tuna club at the high school. No one seemed to remember
that. It's like Rosie Ruiz in the marathon,
She had some fun comments in her yearbook, so it seems like she had friends, but nobody remembers her. At the office that she worked at, no one remembers her.
Yeah, but what turned it around? Who turned her around?
Donald Trump. Well, I would argue social media turned her around, right? That's when she really kind of became this sort of born again Christian of a particular flavor that isn't very popular or very well known. And then she fell into the QAnon, she fell into Pizzagate, and then she fell into CrossFit. And as an adult, sort of found the community that it looked like she had been looking for between CrossFit and QAnon, and suddenly she turned into this Marjorie Taylor Greene we know today. And you know who it reminded me of?
No, I do not.
Sarah Palin.
It does.
Because Sarah Palin, if you recall, nobody remembered her from high school, and no one really, she went to a couple of colleges, if I remember correctly.
She did.
No one really remembered Sarah Palin. So I think they're from outer space.
That's amazing. Now, can I say something?
I think they're aliens.
Down here. She came down with a Jewish space laser.
Yes, that's
that
Jewish
she talks
space
about
laser.
all the
That's
time.
why she knows
Watch
about
what you
it.
say, Marjorie.
Yeah,
Let me tell you something. Because we didn't want to disappoint our audience, we read the whole story. It's fabulous. We both are huge fans of the Atlantic. However, since, again, did I just say we don't want to disappoint our audience? Yes. I will read to you from something our crack staff pulled together from the Mirror in the UK.
Oh, the UK Mirror, yes.
And this is not in the Atlantic story. It comes after she was engulfed in controversy last year, that'd be Marjorie Taylor Greene, for beginning an affair with a tantric sex guru, which started divorce proceedings against her husband. Whilst is like a British term.
Yeah, those Brits.
Whilst
I don't know.
the politician had an affair with polyamorous Craig Ivey, 43. After bumping into each other, I bet they did, at her gym in Georgia, she then had another fling with the gym manager. That'd be Justin Tway.
Good for her.
Just as she began plans to divorce her husband in July of 2012. Now, for people who are not familiar, tantric sex guru, what does that mean exactly, Sue O'Connell?
Well, I'm not an expert in tantric sex.
Based on
yet.
what you know.
Based on what I know, it's just a kind of a yoga, breathing, positioning kind of sexual activity.
You know who does that, by the way, as a practitioner? One of the best looking people on the planet. Not to be superficial. Sting. That's exactly right, yeah.
But you know what was interesting about this piece, too? Not just that she kind of emerged and became incredibly popular really fast by posting these crazy things.
And got lots of affirmation, which is the other part of it, from men.
Yes.
Almost all, that's a very good point.
Telling her she was really cute, and they really thought she was wonderful.
And often whenever you're looking at, and I mean the minority in that, if you're the minority in a group of people, right? If you get a lot of affirmation from that group, you tend to feel more connected to that group, right?
But they talked about how she was at this event, some Cobb County Republican event, and they talked about how she wasn't, this is from the Atlantic piece, she wasn't greeted there. She was beheld like a religious apparition. Emotions verged on rapture. And when she spoke, one man jumped to his feet with such force that his chair fell over. Two women clung to each other and shrieked. It was like a Beatles concert or something in 1964 at Shea Stadium. I mean,
Cults will act like that. Cults will do that.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I think Madonna said once that she always wished that she would be famous, but she didn't realize these were the people who would adore her. And I think that Marjorie Taylor Greene has just embraced these people,
but she
gets the feedback.
This woman is going to be a hugely powerful force in the Republican House.
She is.
I mean, it is just kind of unbelievable.
She's chair of the Tantric Sex Caucus. Do you know that's huge?
She's chair
in the
of
House.
that. That's right. That's right. Mitch McConnell once called her a cancer on the Republican Party, but that's all over
she is
now.
and I don't mean this to be offensive to anyone. She's a nut job. She's a
nut
complete
job.
nut job, and she was quietly under the radar until she got to be 30, and suddenly embraced all of these conspiracy theories, found Donald Trump, got affirmation, decided to run for Congress, which you would think would be a great thing. Hey, why not me? I should run. And she did, and she found people who would vote for her. And like any election, you don't need a lot of votes. You just need the right number of people to come out and vote for you.
You know what the one disturbing part of the story is for someone who is so toxic? There's a part of this that is actually a really inspiring story, too. This is a woman who was just doing her thing, had a business, had another business, trying to make a few bucks, got inspired by a politician and social media to become an activist. She goes to Washington at a hearing where she felt that her concerns were not addressed. So she said, I'm going to go back. Why not me and run for office? I mean, I'm serious about this. I mean, it really is how the small d democracy should work. It just shouldn't work with people who are so...
Well, especially she chased David Hogg down
Hogg
down the sidewalk there in
and
DC.
she tripped another activist, another kid activist, teen activist was there. She stuck her foot out and tripped him. I mean, there's obviously something not so sound with her. But again, I said it as a joke, but I don't really mean it. This is how cults work. Right? You know, you get people who otherwise would be inspiring or smart or are completely great at their jobs, but they're missing something, and they find this something that gives them this affirmation back, this echo chamber, and if they're smart enough, then they end up totally tanked in.
Do you used to be in a cult, Sue O'Connell, media maven?
No, I'm not a really good joiner. That's my problem.
Well, you were the junior NRA, you told us.
I was, but I didn't stay.
Oh.
See, that's my problem.
You're not a good stayer.
I'm not a good stayer.
Joiner.
I'm a good joiner, and I want to be a leader. But then again, I see who's following me, and I'm like, do I want to spend all my time with these people? No, not so much. Just a joke.
So tell us about this woman that got teary-eyed We have actually some sound from
Yeah.
here, so we can play
Do we
it
want to
first.
play? You know, I asked for it, and then I
All right,
realized.
okay, don't play it.
Let's not. Let's.
Put the
It was
kibosh
my
on
fault.
that.
This is a Republican congressperson. But the Respect for Marriage Act, the underlying point is, even though this woman was crying because she wanted to make sure that people who love each other can't be together and can't get
Right.
married.
She's crying.
She was crying.
That's Representative Vicky Hatzler of Missouri. She cried on the floor, saying, "I'll tell you my priorities: protect religious liberty, protect people of faith." Once again, wouldn't it be great if the Congress people could actually get a little lesson in the Constitution? Wouldn't
Yeah.
that be an adorable thing? It also is incredibly exhausting to me to have to explain to people again that we often in the United States have two marriages, right? We have our civil marriage,
yeah.
which we get our license from the government to recognize our marriage, and then we have, if we want, our religious marriage, and the two really don't have anything together that have anything to do together. The reason why ministers and rabbis and sign our marriage certificate is because when we were forming our nation, they were the ones who might have been the government official out in the West, and as we
That's a great
expanded.
point.
So she has no idea that, you know, a gay marriage, if you will, is a civil contract, and it has nothing to do with her religion. So.
Well, the other thing is, I am waiting. Of course, the Supreme Court probably won't take the case. I'm waiting for that case out of Florida where someone is suing and saying, which religion? Because it's
don't get
not
me
just
started.
the evangelical white Protestants who get to decide these things. Jews have different ideas.
Right.
Muslims have different ideas. Mormons now are in favor of same-sex marriage. So which religion? Are we going to say we're only going to protect
and there should be a
certain...
test. There should be a test. You want to take a religious exemption? Take a test. Tell me which religion it is, how often you go to your services, and what your relationship
Well,
is with your God. How about that?
My favorite one is the people that are against birth control. Where are the 10 children? That's what I want. How come nobody's got all these people that are anti-birth control? Really, either you're sterile or something's wrong, or where are all the kids?
I hate to be positive about anything, but can I be positive for a minute? 12 Republicans in the
Yes.
Senate, 39 Republicans in the House, far from a majority. Nevertheless, voted for this thing, which
Right.
is progress.
Right,
Not
and,
enough, but
and
it's
another
progress.
brick in the wall for it. You know,
Yeah.
we've got the Supreme Court ruling, we've got state rulings, and now we have a law that's being
And we
passed.
should be totally clear, because as I said when we talked about this last week, I think Marjorie and I were not clear when this passed the original procedural vote in the Senate. This doesn't legalize same-sex marriage around
Across.
the country like Obergefell did. And what it does is mandates that every state recognize legal same-sex marriages.
Right.
So if you're coming from Massachusetts and you are legally married and you go to Alabama under this Respect for Marriage
to.
Act would have to recognize the marriage in Massachusetts. Again,
It's a firewall. It's a firewall.
It's a piece of the action, but I have to say, with some Republican support, it seems to me it's a
big deal.
Pretty decent day in America. We're talking to Sue O'Connell.
So, Sue, should we be upset about the two anchors on Good Morning America who are in equal positions? I think that they're married, they were married. I guess they're both separated now, who are having an affair. I mean, where do you
Did you ever
condemn
even
them?
hear of these people before?
Amy Robach and T.J. Holmes.
I'm busy watching, my friends over at NBC, so I haven't been paying that much attention to
Okay.
them. So,
Is someone having an affair over there you want to tell us about?
probably. So you make the point. Like
Read the Globe. Sorry, don't worry, Sue. We're not going there. Don't worry. But since you brought it up,
Since I
go
brought
ahead.
it
Thank
up,
you.
yeah. If you're
Okay, let's
if
move
you're
on.
peer to peer, knock yourselves out. So the issue here is one of daytime television. Some people are making up this. They're anchors. Well, they're daytime television anchors, and it always has been a different beast.
Yeah, very loosey-goosey in those daytime
Right,
shows.
and
Anything goes, Sue.
Their peers. It doesn't seem like it. I don't know what the ABC policy is, but it doesn't seem like they violated anything. But just recently, the Try Guys, who was big in my household, one of the Try Guys got canceled because he was having an affair he's married, and he was having an affair with one of their staffers. And what's his name from Maroon 5? He got in trouble for Instagramming, DMing someone, and he's married. And I think the difference between those and this is that they weren't selling their relationships, their marriage as a brand, right? They weren't out necessarily saying,
You mean
here's...
the two Good Morning America? Oh, the
Yeah.
other people.
No, the two Good Morning. The Try
okay.
guy had his wife. His wife was a brand. They were the married guys. So I think the difference in the why there isn't more outrage about this among people is because they weren't presenting themselves as this each of their married couples. On the other hand, it's also, they're incredibly good looking, so people always.
That is what it's all. I'm so glad you said it rather than me.
Somebody hired a private investigator here, and of course, the Daily Mail. If you want to follow scandals, you go to the Daily Mail, the British newspaper, and they, of course, have run all the pictures that the private investigators
and someone
took
on
of
Twitter,
them.
even though I'm not on Twitter that much, someone took all of their clips of their interactions and put it to music on TV to show what great chemistry they had.
Great chemistry. They're this gorgeous couple, and they're having a drink in the bar, and they're holding hands on the back of the car, and they went away to some quaint cabin in upstate New York and ordered food out to cook at the cabin. So we have the whole thing in the Daily Mail, and if you want to check it out, you can see.
Since you two have embarrassed yourself by how much you know about this story, I will add and say, when I went to the Daily Mail website, purely for research purposes,
only
the
for
lead
research.
photograph, what's the woman's name?
Her name is Amy Roback.
Amy Roback is leaning into the trunk of a car
That's right.
to get something. And what's the guy's name?
T.J. Holmes.
T.J. Holmes has his hand on her behind.
That's
That
right.
is the lead photograph.
That's how it looks.
Apparently.
Could be a long lens.
And I tell you, they couldn't look better.
They look great.
They really
look
couldn't
good
look
for
better.
them. Good for them.
Does that bother either of you that so many people know so much about this? Or I mean, I do too. So I'm not.
I'm uncomfortable with the length that the photographer went to follow them to their cabin.
Yeah,
I mean, that's an intrusion. That's none of my business. I mean, if they're going to be out in New York having dinner or out having drinks and people they're highly recognizable. I mean, that's one thing. But it's none of my business. But at least we're not talking about Meghan and Harry.
Yeah, we are not talking about Meghan and Harry.
You watched the first 3 episodes?
Of course I have. I watched all three.
Well, we were going to save that till next week, but
well,
can you give
us.
us like 90 seconds because we haven't seen it yet?
So it's not as scandalous as you would think. There's no big bombshells that have been dropped yet. I have to say, I find Meghan Markle to be an extremely calculating, smart young woman who I find somewhat insincere when she makes statements about things that she doesn't know. Like, for example, I had the opportunity to meet the Duchess Fergie once.
You did?
Oh,
I did.
Oh, with your kid. I remember I saw a photograph
and
of the
I
Ruby
went
with.
and
Speaking
Googled,
of affairs.
There was
That's
pre that.
Speaking of toe sucking,
Yeah,
exactly.
right over before
Were
the
we?
Epstein stuff too, just right before
Exactly.
that. So she got to make the Christmas card. I Googled what to do when you meet royalty. Yeah, I know she's not exactly royalty, high royalty, but I Googled, I checked, I wanted to make sure. I told Ruby, don't touch her, don't shake her hand, you just treat her with this kind of respect, just to be respectful. And apparently Meghan Markle didn't Google what she was supposed to do when she met the Queen.
Oh, about the curtsy deal, yes.
And I don't,
That's right.
I don't believe that. I don't believe that she didn't check. Or when she went to meet, when William and Kate came to meet her, she was in no shoes and had on ripped jeans and a T-shirt, and she was a hugger, and she was surprised at how formal they were. I said, really? Someone who has been a UN international ambassador, who's a grown woman, who's been married, who's a successful actor, was surprised that the royals who...
Can I ask you something here?
So do you think she's duped Harry?
No, I don't. I think she's good for him, and I just think that, and she's not that good an actor. So when she's portraying these things, I'm like, I don't know if that's really true.
Can I ask you if they've been asked? And I assume they have. I missed this too.
Yeah.
Why are they doing that? I mean, I would assume that the most important things they did, which is important, is what they talked about with racism with Oprah.
Yes.
And then we had the woman who's the assistant to the Queen or whatever got canned the other day because of the grotesque questions. She was acting a black woman at a reception over there in the UK. What are they going to add that is a value-added kind of proposition for viewers?
Part of it is it does with that. The stuff that Harry talks about is really horrific when you think about how the kids of the royals, who had no choice when they're children, were born into this and are required to do this dog and pony show.
Because of the media part?
The media part, just how much of the media is all over them. There's footage of Diana begging them to let the kids ski. You got your press conference. Please let them ski. And how it clearly did traumatize him. Even though he's a veteran and has been to war, he was traumatized by the media. He talks about how he has no recollection of his mother as a little kid. He just remembers the media. So I think that there's an opportunity here for them to also set the record straight about the racism, the more important parts of this that they faced, and how the media intrusion, like she basically, once they started dating, she was unable to work again because the TV show could not supply her with the security that the production company decided she needed.
What episode are they going to talk about the Queen having applied for low-income heating assistance funded by the taxpayers of the UK?
I don't know that that's going to
By the way,
come
that
up.
is totally
I know
true.
It's true. I know it's
totally,
true.
I mean,
I do remember that picture.
I'd like to know about
Look
that.
at, they're working royals. We should
They're
be happy
working
about
royals.
that. They
That's
have
right.
left the royal family. They're taking our money now that we're paying to
But you
subscribe
do
to
remember
Netflix.
the pictures of Diana, like a day after she was announced as King Charles, then it was Prince of Wales' girlfriend, coming out of her little flat there in her little outfit to go be a preschool teacher, whatever she was. She was just swarmed.
And that's only what you see.
Swarmed.
You know, then there's everybody else that you don't see that's swarming. It's awful. It's awful. That's
You know,
why
this
I'm
used
not
to be
royal.
called Boston Public Radio. It's now called
The Royal
People
Watch.
Magazine with Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan.
Well, here's the thing: you can get
Oh my
people
God,
you can
let's
get people
move
news
on.
delivered right to your email every day. You don't even have to pay
great.
for
Yeah.
it. You can check on all the Hollywood stars and what they're doing, Jim.
Okay.
You might learn something.
I might. Goodbye, Sue.
Goodbye,
Nice to see you.
hey.
Thank
Okay.
you, Sue
Goodbye,
O'Connell.
the
Yes,
royal
thank
wave
you.
We've been speaking with Sue O'Connell, co-publisher
Very
of
fond
Bay
of Sue,
Windows,
yeah.
South End News, an expert on all things pop culture, contributor to Current on NBC, LX, and NECN. Thank you very much, Sue O'Connell.
Thank you, Sue.
Up next, we are going to talk with legendary French chef Jacques Pepin. He's going to zoom in to the BPL to talk about food, to talk about recipes, to talk about, most important, his latest opus, Art of the Chicken. You are listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library.
New Hampshire's first-in-the-nation status is in jeopardy as the Democratic National Committee moves to change the party's presidential primary schedule. But the Granite State is pushing back. I'm Adam Riley. Tonight on Talking Politics, we'll talk to UNH poli-sci professor Dante Scala about what happens next. Plus, a new poll shows parents are increasingly dissatisfied with the Boston public schools. All that and more on Talking Politics tonight at 7 on GBH2 and online at gbhnews.org.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you and Ocean State Job Lot, fighting hunger by donating food to regional food banks and local food pantries. Learn more at oceanstatejoblot.com. And the University of Massachusetts Amherst, the Commonwealth's flagship public university. You can learn more about research, innovation, and economic impact for the Commonwealth at umass.edu.
Trusted, local news. You're listening to 89.7 WGBH, HD1 Boston, online at gbhnews.org. GBH News with NPR. What matters to you.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy, Marjorie Egan, live from the Boston Public Library, streaming on youtube.com/GBH News. Jacques Pepin is a French chef, author, culinary educator, television personality, artist, and an all-around actually wonderful, really warm person. He's the winner of 16 James Beard Awards, a Daytime Emmy Lifetime Achievement Award, author of over 30 cookbooks, longtime close friend of Julia Child, of course. He starred with her in a PBS series called Julia and Jacques, Cooking at Home.
I've washed this chicken with hot water. And if we take in
I don't wash my chicken.
And he doesn't wash his. I think in France, they're not as worried about things as we are they?
Well, I live in Connecticut, pretty far from France.
That is pretty great. And at 86, I think he's actually 87 in 8 or 9 days, he's out with a new terrific book. It's called Art of the Chicken. It features recipes and, perhaps more impressively, dozens of his incredible paintings that he has done. Jacques Pepin, is great to see you again. How have you been?
I'm terrific for an old man. Thank you.
Oh, we're
Great to see
thrilled.
you
We
again.
are thrilled to talk to you again. And you obviously are not only great about cooking and recipes and wonderful food, but you are quite an accomplished painter. I've never seen so many and such different varieties of chicken. So tell us about what you did in your new book, The Art of the Chicken.
Well, the point is, it was supposed to be a book. I have 30 cookbooks or more, so I wanted to do a book of my painting. And the publisher said, great. As soon as I start signing a picture of the chicken, they say, okay, can we have recipe with it? I said, I don't want to do recipe. So I have another book called The Apprentice, which is a cook's memoir like. So I did a little bit of the same thing. I tell you a story about chicken and about eggs from Africa to France, to America, to Portugal. And I have recipe, but in a narrative style, like my mother used to do this, that too. So I suppose some of them are feasible. Some of them are probably not feasible when I talk about using pig's bladder and chicken wattle and unborn eggs or stuff like this. But it was fun. It may be the first time that I have cooking and my painting and my writing together, so in one thing. So that was it was fun to do.
You know, by the way, I should say, I told Margaret before, one of my prized possessions is my olive oil container was given to me by you and your daughter Claudine.
That's
and Raleigh,
right.
her husband, this beautiful container with a painting of a chicken on it by Jacques Pepin. You know, Jacques, can you take us back? I mean, you have a long history with chickens, my friend.
Yeah.
Can you take us back to your boyhood in France and mention the connection with you and your friends and the special chickens in your region?
Well, yes, I come from a town next to Lyon in France called Bourg-en-Bresse. And the Bresse, B-R-E-S-S-E, chicken are considered maybe the best chicken in France. So since the moment I was born, I could hear those chickens, follow those chickens, live with those chickens, and certainly those are beautiful white plumage, blue feet, and red comb, you know, so bleu, blanc, rouge, the color of the French flag. So those are, and usually the chicken in France, you know, it's in terms of church, I have one in top of my garage here. It represents the fight of the French against, even during the resistance in France, and prior to that, First, Second World War, the chicken was always kind of the motto. I mean, the Gallic cock, you know, going back to Gallic time. And it has always been French, part of the French mythology and so forth.
And you know,
go ahead.
You go ahead.
Yeah, I was married 54 years, and during those years, from the beginning on, each time people came to my house, we wrote the menu down on a book I have, and on the other side, the people sign and say funny things, and we put the label of the wine, we put all of this. I illustrated those menus,
I know.
And I realized that a lot of illustration I had chicken, so I started to do more chicken. But I mean, I have 12 books of those menus over 50 years, so that's basically my whole life, you know.
Well,
in menus.
Jacques Pepin,
Yeah.
speaking of being married for 54 years, I read in your book that in France, loving husbands call their wives my hen, and wives
Yes.
call husbands my chicken. Now,
Yes.
what's that about?
Ma cocotte, mon poulet.
Yeah.
Yes, right.
I don't know. I don't know if I would feel that it was a term of endearment here
I
in the
think it
United
is.
States. What are we missing? My hen and my chicken.
Yes, absolutely.
By the way, we should make clear when we're talking about chicken here, we're talking about there's both art and recipe. Well, sort of recipes.
Sort
we'll
of
talk about that
recipes,
in a
that's right.
minute. Every painting, every one of which is beautiful here, is of a chicken.
Of a
that
chicken.
Jacques Pepin has done at times
Hundreds
throughout his career.
of different pictures of chickens. But you also, you know, a lot of people say, oh, well, and I admit I'm one of them, I love to eat chicken, but I would never dare to kill a chicken. But you did when you were a little boy. I mean, you have really done the whole thing. Tell us about that.
In apprenticeship, I did it as a little boy, but I did it as an older person too.
Yeah.
I don't know when was the last chicken that I killed, but I don't really have much problem killing, eviscerating, plucking. Poultry was part of the apprenticeship when I was a kid, you know. And in that book also I spoke a great deal about the offal, all the variety meat. I mean, the kitchen unborn comb, the comb, chicken feet, chicken liver, chicken gizzard, all kind of recipe that are done in most great cooking, from West Africa to China and so forth. People are going to use that kind of offal, a great deal more than we use it here. So I spent some time with it, and maybe with the eggs as well. The egg is probably maybe even more important than the chicken, So I remember being in West Africa in small village. People were very poor, but there are 3 or 4 chickens. That was a life-sustaining thing. They have eggs every day, and eventually they kill when the chicken is old to do some type of stew with it. Yeah.
We're talking to Jacques Pepin, needless to say. His new book, and it's beautiful, is Jacques Pepin, Art of the Chicken, a master chef's paintings, stories, and recipes of the humble bird. A couple of times ago when you were here, Jacques, you were here with your beautiful granddaughter with whom you had written a book. In fact, let's play a piece of that interview. The cookbook in 2017, I think, was The Grandfather's Lessons in the Kitchen with Shorey. Here it is.
What were you doing in the kitchen when you were 2? Not too much, I presume.
No, I definitely wasn't like chopping or anything.
She was eating chocolate.
Mostly, yeah. No, I spent a lot of time just sort of sitting with my grandfather and my parents and maybe stirring sometimes and just helping in the few ways that I could.
I made a lot of recipes from that book you did with your granddaughter, and it was very precise. In this cookbook, you seem to be saying, Jacques, you trust us to have the right quantities of things. You write a narrative about a recipe, but you don't do the traditional 1/3 of a cup of this, a teaspoon of that. Why did you decide to do it that way?
Because telling story, it's like talking to a friend. If I go eat somewhere in a restaurant and I like the dish, the chef is not going to give me proportion, and he's going to say, what I did this and that. I say, that's a good idea, and that's enough. So maybe it's not enough for certain people, but in that particular book, I wanted to do that type of narrative. And I was teaching at the Boston University last week, actually, and I was there, and my granddaughter was there. She started at BU 6-8 weeks ago.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's a tradition. My daughter went there. My son-in-law teaches there. I've been teaching there almost 40 years, and now the granddaughter is there. So, yes, you can recognize my Boston drawl now.
Exactly. We were going to comment on that. It's amazing.
Yeah, well, people don't know, and tell people you have had, you cooked years ago Charles de Gaulle, the president of France, but you turned down our president here, JFK. So tell us about both of those situations.
Well, it was another world, I was between 56, 58 in France. The government was changing at a rapid pace under the Fourth Republic. So I went with 3 presidents, finishing with Charles de Gaulle. But at that time, the cook was really at the bottom of the social scale. No one will ever have called you in the dining room for kudo. And any good mother would have wanted her child to marry a doctor, a lawyer, not a cook. So the cook was really very low on the social scale. So when I came here, and I worked here at the Pavilion, which was a great restaurant in New York, 1959, 1960, I was asked to go to the White House. I really did not really realize the potential too, because as I said, the person who went was actually a friend of mine who was the sous chef at the Essex House in New York, and he ended up having the job, René Verdon. And he sent me a picture a couple of years later with Mrs. Kennedy and the president. That was news. That didn't exist before. In fact, I asked who was the chef prior to René Verdon at the White House. And it turned out I was told that it was a black lady from the South. At that point, no one would have known her name or called her or interviewed her no more than they did me. So it was really another world. So you have to look at it in the context of that time.
Oh, but you're only telling half the story. Jacques Pepin turns down the Kennedy White House to be their cook and instead goes to work for Howard Johnson's. Is that not correct, Jacques Pepin?
Yes, it is. But Mr. Johnson was a regular customer at the Pavilion, and he hired Pierre Frenet and me, and it was, I worked there from 1960, 1970 for 10 years. And when I opened When I finished that, I opened a restaurant on Fifth Avenue called La Potagerie, just soup in large production. Then I was a consultant at the Russian Tea Room. Then I opened the World Trade Center with Joe Baum, with over 30,000 people a day. I'm saying those because I would never have been able to do any of those jobs without the training of Howard Johnson. I didn't know anything about production, marketing, chemistry of food, and all that. So I learned a great deal at Howard Johnson.
Wait, do we have to thank you for the fried clams at Howard Johnson? Are you
Fried clams
responsible?
were really, they were very good.
They're
I don't think it would be possible to do now. Those clams were like over a pound each, deep clam, and we only use the tongue. The tongue of the clam, we put through a machine to do those long strips. The body of the clam were used for the clam chowder, So I don't think we could do it now with the same clam because they don't exist anymore, I guess.
Now, at the beginning of the interview with you, Jacques Pepin, we played a clip when Julia Child talked about washing the chicken. You said you didn't wash the chicken. Did they make you wash the chicken at Howard Johnson's, or what was the deal there?
No, I mean, what's the problem? You take the chicken, put it into a 400-degree oven or more for like an hour. I mean, the few bacteria which may be there, if they can survive that, then they need to leave,
Okay. We're talking to Jacques Pepin, a French chef, author, culinary educator, a TV personality. You all know him. He's got a wonderful book now called The Art of the Chicken, which has incredible paintings of chicken and a lot of great stories about growing up, your childhood, and your...
By the way, the paintings are really beautiful.
They're
I hope
beautiful.
people don't think we're just
Hold
saying
up the
this
book there.
because
Hold up the
Jacques
book.
is with us. Well, you
Yeah.
can't, unfortunately. Well, is there a camera?
Yeah.
There is a camera on me. They're beautiful photographs. I'll show a few that people, I hope they can. Can you come in here and I'll do a few more?
There you go.
Is
They're
there
beautiful.
is there a thread through a great chef and a great painter? Do you think there's some similar skills, Jacques Pepin?
Not really. I mean, I'm not a great painter, but there are similarities, Very often, I start a painting, I don't really know exactly where I'm going. And at some point, however, the painting take a hold of you, and then I react to it and adding color or a shape and so forth. And there is similarity in the kitchen. When you work behind the stove, you work on a recipe, you taste, you adjust, you taste, you adjust, and so forth. So a bit of the same idea here. You can look in the back cover of that book. I am a picture of me with two chickens standing on my shoulder.
Oh, yes, indeed.
That's next door. Here I have a friend of mine who has chickens, so that's where I get my eggs.
Jacques Pepin, you mentioned how when you were a young man, any prospective father would not be happy if his daughter was going to marry a cook. That has totally flipped, I think. We have these world-famous chefs now. We just had on Joanne Chang, who's a great pastry maker and runs a restaurant here in Boston. Tiffany Faison.
Sally Ling yesterday with her daughter.
Yes, a dumpling daughter, a wonderful Chinese cooking. Chefs have become like television stars. What happened?
Wow. I don't know. We're genius now.
Yeah.
So you can't take it too seriously because we're still mashed potato makers.
Yeah. Do you ever watch all these cooking shows though, or do you find them kind of weird?
Not really.
Not really.
Yeah.
No.
I don't even look at mine. But since the beginning of the pandemic, my daughter Claudine told me, why don't you do a little show for Facebook, 3 minutes, 4 or 5 minutes. And my friend Tom, who worked with me for 40 years doing book and all that, we did 300 of those shows on Facebook. So my daughter used that all the time. And those are like 3, 4, 5 minutes with stuff that I have left in my refrigerator, what my wife used to call fridge soup. I open the refrigerator, whatever is left over, some wilted salad, a piece of carrot, an onion too. We make a soup with that. Yeah.
You also said that eggs are very important. So for those of us who go to the market buying eggs, what kind of eggs should we look for?
Well, no question, organic eggs. I mean, now there is no question that you have organic eggs in any market, and it may be $1 or maybe even $2 more than a regular egg, but that amount to 10 cents for each egg. It's nothing at all. And the quality is there, and the chicken is happier. It's kind of walking around and eating warm and stuff. So yes, make the chicken happy. Eat organic eggs.
You think they taste? You think they taste differently?
Oh yes, absolutely.
They do.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, as I say, I have chicken here. a friend of mine from Jamaica, Natalia, on my road here, had those chickens going around, the one that I have on my shoulder on that picture here. They are running around, happy, eating warm. So yes, you have to be nice to the chicken.
By the way, I was nice to a chicken last night, and I made your chicken salad from the cookbook. And it, just as you said, it was unbelievably tender. Before you go, Jacques Pepin, sitting in your house in Connecticut, when you are having a tough day and want a meal that's going to lift your spirits, what's the one thing that's at the top of the list? Don't just say chicken. What's your number one item?
A bottle of wine.
An honest man. Jacques Pepin, it's wonderful to see you. Your book is wonderful. Say hi to your wonderful family, too. It's really great to see you.
Thank you. Great to talk to you.
It's really good
always.
to see you. Thank you.
We've just been speaking with Jacques Pepin, who, of course, is the legendary French chef. He's the author, culinary educator, does a lot of work up at BU, does a lot of charitable
You sat next to him at that fundraiser at BU.
He's such a charming,
He is
wonderful,
incredible.
warm man. He's a television personality and an artist, and the book is
beautiful.
fantastic
It
with
is.
the pictures and the kind of free-form recipes, Jim, but you managed to make a recipe from there.
Chicken salad.
That's right. So the book, again, is The Art of the Chicken, a master chef's paintings, stories, and recipes of the humble bird, and it talks about his young life growing up in France. Okay, coming up, we've got another live Music Friday performance on Boston Public Radio with Chad Stokes from Dispatch and State Radio ahead of his 15th annual benefit performance tomorrow night, this weekend, at the House of Blues. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH.
With Roe v. Wade overturned, doctors in some states are unsure how to handle complications during pregnancies, and that's causing some people to rethink having kids.
I will not put myself through that again if I don't have the confidence that I will be able to come out the other side.
I'm Elsa Chang. That story this afternoon on All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Support for our programs comes from you and the Office of the Massachusetts State Treasurer. The Unclaimed Property Division is holding unclaimed funds for the citizens and businesses of the Commonwealth. You can see if you have unclaimed money at findmassmoney.com. And United Healthcare, providing health plan coverage options for New England businesses and their employees. You can learn more at uhc.com. That's uhc.com.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Marjorie Egan, Jim Browdy, live from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. This is what we wait for every Friday. Chad Stokes, then of State Radio, wrote the song Calling All Crows. It's a women empowerment anthem. Now it's taken on new meaning as a nonprofit he co-founded with his partner Sybil Gallagher to marry music and activism. This weekend marks the organization's 15th annual benefit. Marjorie is going, by the way, and she didn't even know he was coming.
I know.
And his latest band, Chadwick Stokes and the Pintos, will play this Saturday at the House of Blues. You can find more information and get tickets at callingallcrows.org. But first, Chad, his band, and Sybil join us here at the Boston Public Library for a live Music Friday performance. Chad and Sybil, it's great to see you both. How are you?
Thank you for having us. Great.
Yeah, we're
Thanks,
thrilled
y'all.
to have you here. So, Chad, let's start with you. What's going to happen tomorrow night?
We have our 15th annual benefit weekend concert at the House of Blues.
And what's the theme?
The theme, well, we're wrapping up a campaign trying to change the narrative in our country's incarceration problem. So we'll be talking about that. And there's a theme about trying to stop assault and sexual assault in the music industry, in our own industry. But it's also a celebration of 15 years and doing this for that long. And always wonderful to play with the Pintos. So we have a few new songs we're debuting, so it's going to be fun as well.
We'll introduce the other members of the band in a couple of seconds. You run the Calling All Crows deal. And can I ask you a question first? When I saw you guys last, it was 3 years ago, I think, and it was the 12th thing. Tomorrow's the 15th thing. Does that mean you continued this during the pandemic or
Yes,
no?
yes.
How'd you do that?
Well, our campaign during the pandemic was our Unlocked Voices campaign around mass incarceration. So we focused on the needs for incarcerated people during that time. And we did a lot of virtual service projects and engaged bands in 6 main markets throughout that period.
Can you describe, when I met you, and you told me some of the statistics about harassment of women, sexual harassment of women, not just verbal harassment of women at concerts.
Yeah.
Give me some of those numbers and describe the problem you guys have tried to address.
Well, we've tried to survey different festivals, like the main festivals in the country, and over 85% of people have been assaulted in some form as fans at music festivals.
What does that mean, assault? I mean, 85%?
Yes.
So what does that mean?
Well, it could be verbal, it could be touching, it could be groping, it could be catcalling, it could be power dynamics within a touring party. It could be a power dynamic between an artist and a fan.
And what are you doing about it?
We have something called the Here for the Music campaign, which we've been doing for about 5 years now, focusing on training this industry on how to be active bystanders at shows, in the workplace, and it's something that there is such a great need for it. So we have just been slowly building capacity over the years to meet this need with this wonderful community at Calling All Crows.
And when, I was stunned by this when I learned about this, because I kind of stupidly, naively thought musicians, artists, people that are more sensitive and maybe more kind of with the program. So how did this all come to the fore? How did we start hearing about this?
Well, I think that being in touring parties for years, we saw a lot of behaviors that we knew weren't right, but they were so normal. And
normalized.
They were really normalized and within the industry. And I actually think a big turning point for us was watching what happened in the film industry and really realizing, like, even though there's a lot of power in these industries, these behaviors are not okay.
Yeah.
And there's also a huge lack of leadership with women in the music industry, and I think there's a reason for that. We all know there's a reason for that. And there's also a lack of female artists. So this hits every corner of the music industry, and we just felt like it was important to address it.
So you're going to play. I mean, I love talking, but I really want to hear you play. Is that all right? Do you mind?
Let's do it.
And they're going to come back and talk a little bit. Do you want to introduce your bandmates? You want me to do it?
Yeah, I'll do it.
Well, who are they?
Okay.
One of them's related to you, I
yes.
believe. Is that correct?
We'll start with him on the far left. There's Willie, my brother.
Hello, brother Willie.
And then next to him is JR.
Hey, JR.
Who also plays in Dispatch with me. And next to him is Tommy.
Hey, Tommy.
And Tommy plays in a few bands himself, as does Matt Embry, who also plays in Dispatch with me and is
Matt. Nice
moonlighting here. And some of these guys live in California now, so it's extra special to have them on the East Coast.
So, before you go up there, you're very close to the Charles River. So how does it feel? I remember you did a concert on the Charles with 100,000 people. Today you're performing at the library. I mean, how do you deal with that juxtaposition there, my friend?
I would say that a typical music career as a musician is constantly humbling.
No, I didn't mean it in that way at all.
I mean, this is
I
very
meant
special.
how great is it to be performing in a library? You got me wrong there.
Yeah, okay, I hear you.
Let's rewind that if we can, please.
I'm more.
It is true, though.
What I would say about the 100,000 at the Esplanade was that it's so surreal that it's kind of like playing in front of a brontosaurus or something. There's no way to really process it, and I'm just as nervous coming up here as I was before that day. It's
And what you meant to say, of course, was, and how beautiful it is to play in a beautiful place like the Boston Public Library. Is that what you were going to say in a second?
I'm deeply honored to be here.
It is true.
Do you want to join your bandmates and do so? What are you playing, by the way?
We're going to play a song called Chaska.
Chaska. What's that about? Tell us.
It's about the largest mass execution in U.S. history under President Lincoln.
Native Americans, yes?
Native Americans, yeah. 38 men hung at the same time.
Okay, join them, and we'll talk to your partner here for a second. I know you guys, you train audiences, you train, in terms of the stuff we're talking about a minute ago, you train bands themselves. Why do they say yes to this?
Well, I think it's an industry that is in need of this type of work. And when we introduce this work, whether it's to a festival or to a venue or a management company or a band, they are really interested in learning more and figuring out ways to implement these standards. Like when we look at the music industry, we realize there are all these small businesses and there's no HR anywhere. You know, it's like, it's sort of a free-for-all that people, I think structure is sort of wanted.
But isn't the problem that the people who ask for it are the ones who least need it, and those who need it the most are the last ones to ask for it?
You would think so. Sometimes the people who need it the most are looking for the help because they need it too.
I'd like to hear that.
Yeah.
Okay, Chad Stokes and the Pintos, take it away. Thank you so much for being here.
A man to make the day, and he's still walking around, you see. Well, it's good one going. What's wrong? What's wrong? Yeah, what's wrong? What's wrong?
Pintos. That was absolutely amazing. Well, we're waiting for him to come back here. Sybil, on another note, I read where you guys met as camp counselors like years and years ago. So tell us the story.
Okay, we met on Martha's Vineyard at Camp Jabberwocky, which is a camp for people with adults with disabilities. And we were counselors there 25 years ago.
Wow, and that was it?
That was it.
Yeah, swept her off
No
her
turning
feet.
back. Yeah.
Hey, let's talk about the work for a second. That was fabulous, by the way. I know you know that, but it was. Even in a library, it was fabulous. You know what I mean there, Chad? He's not going to live that one down. CallingAllCrows.org. That's where you get tickets for tomorrow. In addition to that, if people want to find out about the organization and help or volunteer or get involved, that's the place to do that, right? What can real people do other than donate?
Well, you can be involved in pre-show service projects. You can be a volunteer in many markets across the country. You can encourage, there's so many things going on that you'll find on our website, but you can encourage artists that you like and that you follow to take this pledge that we're all asking artists to take. I mean, there's so many things on callingallcrows.org to get involved in.
You're local people, we should say. We haven't said that at all. You want to say you want to say where you live? Or you don't want to say? You don't have to.
We live in Milton.
Milton. That's pretty local,
Represent.
I should say. So, listening to your music, and I do, Chad, there, how many Trump songs do you have in your head? I'm amazed that there's not like an album or a double album or something.
It's coming. It's coming.
At first, when Trump was first elected, I had nothing. I just could not process it. I was so sad and upset and there was nothing. And then after about a year and a half, I could not write about Trump. They were all Trump songs.
So I want to get back to what's going to happen tomorrow night. Will this be something that people are going to talk about and learn about tomorrow if you go?
Yes, absolutely. So we are on the tail end of a 3-year campaign, Unlock Voices campaign, that has focused on mass incarceration. And it's a big celebration of that campaign, and our partners will be there, and just talking about the reality of this dire crisis in our country and changing the narrative around what's going on. So there will be a lot of talk about that and a continuation of Here for the Music and just what the new standards we feel should be and how to accomplish that within this community.
And I hope the answer to my next question is going to be absolutely yes, Jim. People who want to hear great music are okay and maybe even accepting and excited about learning something too, or they just want to hear music, Chad?
Well, we have, it's 15 years in, so we have kind of, if you caught us on year 2 or 3, we were up there at a podium talking and talking, and every year that goes by, the talking gets less and less. So
there's a lot of great music.
Yeah, but I understand the sexual harassment thing now that I've learned about it, and that this goes on at such a great rate. How did the mass incarceration part come about?
We were actually on Martha's Vineyard, where we spend quite a bit of time, and we had a run-in with Senator Raphael Warnock, who was giving a speech down there, and we were really inspired by this speech he gave about mass incarceration, and we built a relationship with him and his organization, Multi-Faith Group to End Mass Incarceration, and we built this campaign around that relationship.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I also wonder if you have kids, teenagers, young women that are going off to see whatever group it is, and maybe it doesn't happen that much at Taylor Swift concerts. I don't know, or maybe
I'm sure it does.
Yeah. So what should you tell your daughters?
I think being active bystanders for your friends, and just learning how to do that. There's so many ways, even going on to Calling All Crows, there's a training you can take from our website just to what to look for, how to avoid these behaviors, how to handle them when they come up. And also being really in tune to the security team who is at the venue, and also making good decisions. I think people become really vulnerable when they go into a show setting with drugs and alcohol, and also just the culture that we've created over so many decades in music, that so many of these behaviors are acceptable. And they're actually a huge bummer for the people who are being affected by them. And then they go home quietly, and it was a life-affecting moment, So, yeah, I think just learning and expecting a new standard for musicians and this industry as a whole.
You know, one last thing, though. I mean, no one is going to excuse that kind of behavior from any human being, much less a fan at a concert. Chad, some of your fellow performers encourage it. I mean, don't you think? I mean, what you hear on the stage is sort of an inspiration to behave poorly to other human beings.
Yeah, it's like, sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Yeah.
So it's kind of embedded in the DNA, depending on who you talk to. So it is. I think that's why the music industry has been so late in having its wake up moment because of the history.
Each of those bands should have to have a podium set up. The leader of the band should have to give a talk. What are you playing for your second tune for us?
We're gonna debut a new song called "Atmosphere."
Oh, great.
I'm a little worried. It's kind of a long song. I'm watching the minutes go by.
We're thrilled to have you. Go play.
Sweetie.
Chad Stokes and the Pintos. And again, to learn about all the incredible work you guys are doing, callingallcrows.org.
That's
yes?
right.
Great.
Yeah,
Terrific.
thank you so much.
We're thrilled to have you.
Thank you for having us.
Willie Ermstrom on the banjo, backup vocals, Tommy Eng, bass guitar, backup vocals, John J. R. Riley, drums, backup vocals, and Matt Embry on guitar and sings as well.
Okay, boss. Ready to go? 1, 2, 3, 4.
Everyone is downstairs already. We must have just woken up as the sun came up. Take that rope from the skylight and shimmy down the chimney, Eddie. Hit the post and rail fence next to forever and don't ever stop. I can hear her whistling her lost ranchera, her not quite unrequited subdivided love. She said through her girl next door mascara, oh my darling, tell me how you feel. Not everything that's stolen is a steal. The world keeps turning and our souls keep learning as the stars go burning through the atmosphere. Our girl now we're following our relationship. It was almost the summer of 1994. But there were sidewinders that threatened our relationship, like the great mutinies of the French army in the First World War. I remember listening to that song in the dark, wondering if my body would be able to contain my heart. She whispered her requiem for a lark. Oh, my darling, tell me how you feel. Not everything that's stolen is a steal. The world keeps turning, and the stars go burning through the atmosphere. Mighty Holly, let down your hair. Mighty Holly, do you dare?
speaking with Chad Stokes and Sybil Gallagher.
Wow.
They'll be playing a show tomorrow night for the Calling All Crows benefit at the House of Blues. To get more information and get tickets, callingallcrows.org. That's callingallcrows.org. Again, thanks to Chad Stokes, Sybil Shepherd, Willie Ermstrom, Tommy Eng, John J.R. Riley, and Matt Embry for being here this afternoon. We really, really appreciate it. Thank you very much. Again, callingallcrows.org. Okay.
Sybil Gallagher, too.
I said that, didn't I?
No, Sybil Shepherd is a great actress, but she wasn't here
Did
today.
I say Sybil Shepherd?
She'll be with us next Friday if you want to come back.
I'm so
Close
sorry.
enough.
Sybil Gallagher. Sorry about that.
Bruce Willis will be here, too, by the way. I would be here if I were you.
Okay.
After 294 days in captivity, Brittany Griner is free. We're talking about the long road that Brittany has endured, the details of her release, and the Americans left behind. I'm Melissa Harris Perry, and that's next time on The Takeaway from WNYC and PRX.
This afternoon at 2, here on GBH News 89.7.
Support for GBH comes from you and Mass General Cancer Center, dedicated to providing the latest therapies and cancer specialists who are experienced in your cancer. When you hear the word cancer, their team is ready. Learn more at massgeneral.org/cancer. And National Grid, providing access to electric heat pumps that can help businesses achieve their sustainability goals. You can learn more about heat pump technology at ngrid.com/future.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marge Egan live from the Boston Public Library, streaming online at youtube.com/GBH News. Let me make one more pitch. Not only is it a great cause tomorrow night, callingallcrows.org, they can really play. And if you weren't watching on YouTube, they're also great to watch play. I would go. And again, Marjorie's going to be there tomorrow night, so it's sort of like a twofer kind of experience. So if you've already gotten your Christmas tree, you've seen the sticker shock. Not just inflation driving prices up. Real Christmas trees are likely to cost about 10% more this holiday season than last. Drought conditions are also affecting the cost of trees this year, reducing the harvest nationwide. And since trees don't grow in a day, impacts of the 2008 Great Recession still have their roots, so to speak, sunk deep in the market today. So we're opening the lines at 877-301-8970 and ask you the question we ask every year, but with a little more urgency this time. Are you a real tree person, or do you opt for the fake one? Are the higher costs of the most symbolic images of Christmas, the tree, affecting your decision this year? And be honest, when you give us a buzz at 877-301-8970, are you using the fairly significant cost, well, I guess it depends on your point of view, increase cost as a cover to switch from the correct decision, which is the live tree, to the grotesque decision, which is the fake tree? And by the way, a mere 75% of our fellow occupants of this country have a fake tree, which is an unmitigated disgrace. 75%.
Oh, I did not know that.
It's a disgrace. 877-301-8970. You have a real tree or a fake tree?
I have a real, well, I don't have it yet. But
well, when you get it, what are you doing?
I will have a real tree.
Boston Christmas trees are friends on Harvard Street.
Right.
That's the place to go.
That's right. Yeah, but they do say that the even though you might say to yourself that the fake tree is better for the climate, it is not better for the climate. You'd have to keep a tree an awful long time, a fake one, at least 7 or 8, or some people say even 20 years to get rid of the climate impacts of what it's made of.
Because the carbon cost of the making of the thing. And you know what a real tree does when it's growing for 6 or 7 or 8 years?
Helps the climate.
It absorbs carbon. So it's sort of the flip of the fake tree. You know, when you don't make eye contact with me, I think the listener knows that often means you're bending the truth a little bit. So you haven't been doing a fake tree in your house, have
I've
you?
never had a fake tree.
In
Jim.
your whole life?
In my whole life.
Is that really true?
No, I have not ever had one.
And you're not going to give in this year,
Not
are
going
you?
to give it. Well, although I must say this.
What's that?
I have been to people's homes who have fake trees. And
They're
they
quite nice?
look better and better. They look
You know what
real.
they are,
You have
though?
to get really
You know what
close.
they are?
Yeah, they're made out of PVCs.
They're fake. That's the problem.
Polyvinyl chloride,
Exactly.
plastic, petroleum-based, and created at pollution-belching petrochemical
Nicely put.
facilities.
Exactly.
Okay.
So we are a real tree show here on whatever we are, Boston Public Radio. We want to know what you are. Please tell the truth. Gene from and by the way, if your excuse for switching to a fake tree purportedly is this 10% increase, tell us that, and we'll try to talk you out of it.
This person that talked about how the tree that she paid $124 last year, $120 for last year, 8-foot balsam, was $221.
Can I respond to that if I may?
Yep.
Total crap. I just called my friend, Chris Gregory, who's one of the co-owners of Boston Christmas Tree. 10% increase on average, he said.
Okay.
10%. So
well, some people maybe are price gouging, Jim.
They may be doing
it
that.
Always happens.
By the way, someone just suggested we change our name from Boston Public Radio to Balsam Public Radio. We'll consider it.
Do you go balsam or Fraser fir? That's always the big
I
decision.
don't know which is which.
Balsam is the one that smells really good.
I like that.
Fraser fir is the
Is
one
that the thicker one?
lasts
The thicker
longer.
one. The problem with the thicker one is really hard to hang the balls on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because
Fraser
there's no
fir is-
space in the thing to hang the balls on.
Okay. All right.
What do you mean, okay?
No, I was moving on to the calls now.
How come you're going to this concert tomorrow night? You didn't even know they were coming. How did that happen?
No, I just happened to coincidentally be going to the concert for the cause. A friend of mine
You are?
invited me. Yes.
You didn't even know what the cause was until you started preparing
now
for the event.
Now I know.
Okay.
And I'm all set, and I'm ready to go.
I can't believe that happened.
That's right.
Gene in Marlboro, you're first on Boston Public Radio. We're talking about fake versus real trees, one of the truly zen issues of Christmas season. What's up, Gene?
Well, I love my real tree. I actually have a Christmas tree in my front yard.
Oh, my God.
My brother gave it to me as a present when I first moved into the house 24 years ago. And it was in a small pot.
Wow.
And I planted it in the front yard, and now it's 8 feet tall. And my brother passed away. He was my only sibling.
Sorry.
He passed away in 2008. So this tree has very special meaning to me. And I put lights on it every year, but I have gotten to the point in my life where I can't go up a ladder, and my neighbors come over and help me.
That's great. That's a great story from beginning to end.
Well, you know what?
That's beautiful, Gene. Enjoy it this year, and thanks for sharing that story.
You do hear stories, and I'm not one of those people that's good enough, but people plant their trees after they take them down.
I thought you were gardening all the time. You're talking about gardening all the time.
Well, you're supposed to, in certain towns, and I think Brookline is one of them, they take the trees to mulch them. They don't just dump them in the landfill.
But you're allowed to plant it if you want.
Yeah, you are allowed to
Jamie
plant it.
told us before, those little tabletop trees for like $25, which is a total ripoff at Whole Foods.
Mhm.
You can plant those things
Yeah, you
afterwards.
can plant those,
So
too.
why don't you plant one of those?
Well, maybe I will. Jim,
Exactly.
are you planting any?
Yes, I am. Actually, I've planted a whole row of them. I have. And I'd be glad to come over to your house and plant a row
Okay,
there, too.
I'd like to see that. Kaylin from Denver.
You know,
Denver.
I did cut down a tree like 10 years ago.
That's Jim's story. He's sticking to it.
I did cut down a tree
Okay.
once. Oh, look, it's Kaylin, who used to be at the library, and now he's in Denver. What's up, Kaylin?
Hey, both. I was just talking with my family and my girlfriend last night about this. Every year I grew up going into our woods in Vermont, cutting down the most Charlie Brown sad tree every year because we refused to get a real one. We moved out here in June, and this was the first year that I've ever had to buy a tree because it feels sacrilegious to get a fake one.
Exactly.
We spent $115 on what is basically a 4-foot shrub in our living room. And
$115?
115 for it was about 4 feet tall.
Oh my God.
It's a full tree, but it's very expensive, and spent $10 on a Christmas tree additive to apparently make it grow better, even though it's probably stopped growing.
Yeah, well, they have that stuff, that preserved stuff you put in the bottom, and then they also have the spray stuff that you can spray on the tree to make it smell like a tree.
Well, that's
when
not
it
real,
stops
but that's
smelling
not
like a
real
tree.
either, then.
Well, I mean, we don't have to have a perfect everything
Kaylin,
all
good luck
natural.
with that. By the way, one of your finest columns ever.
It was about
when you were at the
Christmas
Boston.
trees?
No. At the Boston Herald,
the
the adjustable Christmas
the
tree.
The swivel stand.
Swivel
Yeah,
stand.
well, because as everybody knows, one of the big issues in a relationship every year is putting up the Christmas tree, and there's usually a big fight about that because either one half of the couple is underneath the tree trying to hold it up, and they're holding the thing up, and the other person is out there telling them that they have to move to the right or to the left, and then they finally get it done, and the tree slants to the right or slants to the left. It's kind of a fight.
Well, you know what the other problem is besides that? I told you, I think I said this the other day, is we were taking care of a neighbor's dog a couple of years ago, took it to another people's house for Christmas, went right to the tree and peed on it. Now, that is a true story, and it's also, that's the only downside of the real tree, because I assume they would not have done that were it not for the...
I don't know.
I don't think they pee on fake trees.
I have had, my dog never touched thank goodness, never touched the tree. John from Rhode Island, what's up with you?
Hey, John, what's up?
Hi, guys. I want to say great show. It's always love listening to you guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
A couple things. For me, it's always about the activity, going out to get the tree as a family. To me, it's like the biggest thing of why I want a real tree. That being said, I think it's a situation for some people when they can't do that. Like if my mother was 80, 85, she's not going to go out and get a tree, so she had a fake tree.
I got it.
Yeah.
Well, that's excusable. When you're
definitely
85, it's sort of acceptable, do you think?
Right, yes, exactly. But one thing I do want to say, I spent a lot of time in Florida when I was younger.
Yeah.
And the trees down there are about $50 more than they are up here, and I probably would not buy a tree down there.
Yeah, because you have to go an awful long way in the truck, right? To get all
Don't
the way
the ones
down.
here come awful? Oh,
Yeah, but they're not driving all the way to Florida.
Well, that's a good point.
I mean, the trees are coming up from the
That's
north.
that's a very good point.
You would think. John, thank you for the call. Listen,
Appreciate
this is Bronwyn from South Boston.
What?
We paid $265
that's not
for a
possible.
9-foot
9
Fraser
feet.
in Chestnut Hill. It seemed completely crazy. We were going to just drop the tree and run, but the guy was putting it on our car.
How much was it again?
$265.
But 9 feet is huge, right?
9 feet is huge. We bought it the weekend after Thanksgiving. It was better last until Christmas. They'll never get a fake tree, no matter how much it costs. Fraser is better, they said, because it doesn't hurt your hands as much. And the needles do last. The needles do last longer on the Fraser, but the balsams do smell better. 877-301-8970.
Yeah.
Jim has these perpetual things he gets stuck on, and one of them is whether you should have a fake tree or a real tree.
Not
so that's
stuck.
why we're doing this.
Do you not feel almost the exact same way? We do it once a year. It's not over and over. Once a year is not that much.
I don't have the same passion about
Excuse me, you ever bought a fake tree?
No,
So I
have
guess you
not.
do have a passion, don't you?
I do. Well, I just never, it just seems weird. What do you do with it? Put it down in the basement?
A
all
fake
year
tree
and
it
wait
is.
for it to get flooded or something down there?
Yeah, and you know what you can do if you have a fake tree? You can give fake gifts to your children. I mean, really, why not continue the theme? Let's go to Ginger in Leominster. What's up with you, Ginger? Thank you for the call. Hi.
Hi.
Yeah.
I hope it's not politically incorrect to wish you all a Merry Christmas.
It is perfectly
And
wonderful. Thank you
We'll
for saying
take
it.
it,
Same to
Ginger.
you.
We'll take it.
All right. We are on our second Norfolk Pine, and we have 4 homes for it. It's the luckiest tree in the world because it's got 3 vacation homes. We keep it in the living room during the Christmas season, and then we put it downstairs in the basement by the window where it's cooler until it's warm enough in May to put it outside.
Wow.
And then in the fall, when it gets a little cooler, we bring it up onto the porch and until Christmas time. And so our tree, this is our second Norfolk Pine, like I said. The first one lasted about 5 years before it got really scrawny. And so we're hoping to get maybe 4 or 5 years out of this one.
That's a great story. Now,
wow.
Ginger, I would assume you feel with the same passion that I do about the live versus the fake Christmas tree. Is that correct?
Oh, definitely. We've never had a fake Christmas tree.
Have you
We've gone
ended
out-
relationships with any friends because they had a fake tree?
That's right.
No, I guess I
okay.
feel to each his own. But
Okay.
for me, trees are really important.
They are.
And
Beautiful.
I hate to...
Well, I love your quadruple thing. That is beautiful. It's a great thing. Thank you for sharing
That's
that
very
with us,
nice.
Ginger. Yeah.
Listen to this. It shows
What?
how much I know, Jim. We just got a text from someone who says, I look forward to this fake versus real tree debate on Boston Public Radio every year. So there you go, Jim.
Can I tell you something also you're not going to like?
What?
In light of the fact that this segment's a little shorter than usual, we're doing it again next week.
Okay.
So you don't have to wait for a year.
Okay.
Tell that person to tune in
Well,
someday
this
next
is the
week.
person who lives in Maine and got a $10 permit to cut down a tree in the National Forest. course, the last few years, the trees are always a little Charlie Brownish, but it's all about the experience. Remember Clark Griswold in the National Lampoon Christmas movie? I love that movie. Every year they go out into the woods and they buy this enormous tree. They chop it down, this enormous tree, and they bring it home and it tips over and crashes through the windows.
You find that really funny, huh?
Well, there are certain movies I watch
great.
over and over again. Bridget Jones.
I got it.
Clark Griswold, National Lampoon Christmas, whatever it's called. And, of course, Jim, your favorite, Love Actually.
Well, actually,
I even watched the Love Actually special that was on 2 weeks ago.
How was that?
It was fantastic.
Why is there such a debate about Love Actually?
Because lots of people I know, a couple of young women I know, think it's a sexist, ridiculous movie. Makes the women all look like little pathetic little damsels in distress, and they do have a point about that. But I like it anyway.
I like it.
Pat from Boston, thank you for calling.
Welcome.
Hey everyone, I called about my tree, but I also want to sign up for Ginger's newsletter about moving trees around.
You're a smart man, let me tell you.
Listen, talent is there. All right, so. I don't want to use the word fake tree. I think we'd call it a permanent tree.
Oh, permanent tree. Good move, Pat.
Permanent tree that brings real holiday cheer. So my view is like at different stages of our life, you're going to want different things. Like I know right now, we basically had an hour and a half in our week, my wife and I, to be like, all right, how are we going to do the tree and have it up with it wet so the girls don't pull it down or get in the way? Mm-hmm. And so for our little slice of life right now, a permanent tree that brings real holiday cheer is what's working for us. But I'll tell you what, every time I walk into, a hotel lobby and there's a big Christmas tree, or I walk into someone's house, I get it. I love it. But I think there's sometimes in people's life where you just say, hey, listen, what's on my list? Do I get bigger fish to fry? I got to take care of right now. And so right now we're going with a permanent tree for the time being.
Can I tell you?
We'll be back to a real tree.
If Ginger is still listening, not only should Pat subscribe, Pat should write a column in your newsletter. That was beautiful.
That's right.
That was the best argument in favor of what used to be called a fake tree I've ever heard. Pat, thanks for the call.
Listen to this text. My family's always done real trees, but this year my poor mother, who hosts Christmas for our extended family every year, said no more. She's 82. My father's 93. They don't want to struggle with getting it in and out of the house, waiting for somebody to come help them. I hate the new tree, this person says, but I can't argue with my mother. She said a few times over that she's losing steam for all this crap.
Oh, it's very sad. Okay, the show's over, Marjorie. That's how it works. When the clock hits.
The show is over. Okay, we have to move on. Thank you very much for listening to another edition of Boston Public Radio. You can keep up with us 24/7 by way of our podcast, which, of course, is called Boston Public Radio. On Monday, Jared is in for me. I have the day off. You know why? I'm going to go Christmas shopping, Jim.
Okay, good.
But Fall River will be well represented by E.J. Dionne from the Washington Post, plus our food policy analyst, Corby Kummer, the Reverends Irene Monroe and Emma G. Price III, MIT economist John Gruber, and the latest on our Priced Out series from GBH News, Stephanie Leiden and Francis Amador from City Life, Vita Urbana. That's going to be great. I want to thank our crew, Zoe Matthews, Aiden Conley, Mackenzie Farkas. Additional support provided by Gia Orsino, Brendan Deedy, Fernando Cervantes, our engineer, John the Claw Parker. Our executive producer is Jane Bologna, and special thanks to the BPL team, Colin Crockrell, Angelica Marrero, Brad Lewis, Evelyn Brito, and Cy Patel. You're not on TV tonight.
No, I'm not. And tomorrow night, you are going to Chad Stokes and the Pintos.
Yes, I am.
What are you, me, and our whole team doing tonight?
We're going to go see Ryan Landry's great Christmas show.
Little Christmas Tree Shop of Horrors.
Little Christmas Tree Shop of
Horrors. By the way,
Horrors.
we haven't seen this year yet, but every year it's been fabulous. brownpapertickets.com. Again, don't bring the kids, but it is huge fun. And there's a little cameo by two of my favorite radio hosts. Who would they be?
That would be you and I, Jim.
That would be you and me? You and
would be you and I. You and I.
Me?
Yeah. No.
Marjorie and the two of us are doing it.
In any case, that's right.
We'll be there tonight. She'll be at the wherever tomorrow night. We hope to see you Monday. I am Jim Browdy.
I'm Marjorie Egan. Thanks to people
Thanks
who came
for coming,
down to the Boston
everybody,
Public
too.
Library.
We appreciate it.
Have a great weekend and see you Monday.
Choose 100 Best Relaxing Piano as your thank you gift. ClassicalWCRB.org or 888-995-9272. That's ClassicalWCRB.org or